Good morning. A warm welcome to everyone to the ACER ENTSOG workshop on greater flexibility to book IP capacity, IP firms capacity. This case that we would like to discuss today originates from EFAT, who posted the case 2 years ago at the functionality platform of ACER and ENTSOG. We will work with my co-chair, Claude Mangin, who you see on the screen, and the both of us, we will be co-chairs to this workshop. I will introduce a little bit the goals of the workshop, and Claude will guide you through the housekeeping and the agenda. The goal of the workshop is to discuss the functionality case that has been posted by EFAT, as mentioned. And the case is really focusing whether we could have greater flexibility to book firm capacity at IPs. This case closely relates on how we would auction based on the CAM network code. What is really interesting about this case that in the current market turmoil where we have higher prices and greater challenges concerning supplies due to the war in Ukraine, the question is whether this case also has urgency to change the CAM network code. So practically, I invite that we would discuss two topics today: the options that are on the table and which will be presented in the first part of the workshop. And then the second is to discuss also or reflect a little bit why is there any urgency or whether there is urgency about putting these options as soon as possible in the CAM network code. With that, I wish you good luck and I'm passing on the floor to Claude. Have a great workshop.
Thank you, Chila. So hello, good morning, everybody. So it's maybe a bit early start for a Monday morning before the summer, but welcome to all of you to attend this event. So I'm Claude Mangin from ENTSOG. I'm going to start with the housekeeping. So please, it's we are on normal team, so do not put your camera and microphone on, but instead, during the presentation, you can put some question in the chat and we'll come during the discussion time to those questions. And during the discussion time, you can also raise your hand and you will be able to answer to ask a question live. And we'll try to manage that in a coordinated order, in a good order, sorry. Then after the workshop, there will be a post-workshop survey that will be sent to all of you to capture more comments from your side. And all the presentation will also be available on this event page. And now I go to the agenda. So Steve Rose from EFAT will present us the FUNC issue they posted on our FUNC platform. And Madeleine will summarize the result of the public consultation. And then we'll go through ACER point of view and ENTSOG proposal. And after the break, we'll go, the booking platform will give us their point of view and like the other stakeholder, and we'll have a general discussion on the issue. And Sheila will close the event with the closing remark. So I think we move directly to Steve Rose from EFAT regarding the issue they posted on the FUNC platform. Hello, Steve. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Claude, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's good to see so many familiar names on the call. Unfortunately, we still are not able to have these workshops live in Brussels, but I'm sure that time will come fairly soon. And it's good that there's so much interest in this particular topic that we raised some time ago. So for those that don't know you, my name's Steve Rose. I work for RW Supply and Trading, but I'm here today representing EFAT, and amongst other things, I'm here chair of the EFAT's Gas Hub Development Group, which works on issues such as this and others relating to hub development and markets and interconnection of markets. So what I thought I'd do just briefly before we start discussing the proposal and some of the possible alternatives is to give you a quick rundown and summary of the proposal and why we felt the need to raise it. So next slide, please. So just start with a bit of background information. Going back to 2015, when the implementation of the CAM network code took place, the world was quite a different place. We had a number of very disparate methods of booking capacity. Each TSO books their own capacity individually using different methodologies, different processes, different timetables, etc. And the CAM network code effectively has done a very good job since then of standardizing the products, standardizing the auction timetable, and also the allocation mechanisms by which shippers book capacity at interconnection points. It's also reduced the amount of platforms or places where you can potentially book capacity. So we now have 3 booking platforms across the whole of Europe where all interconnection capacity is actually purchased. Compare that with the previous situation where each individual TSO had their own platform and their own way of allocating capacity at these points. And the other element of the success of the CAM network code is capacity has been bundled. So it's now possible to buy both the entry and the exit element of the capacity together in one auction. They're still 2 separate products, so you could argue that they're not strictly fully bundled, but nevertheless, bundling, I think, has been seen to be a positive overall. There's 1 or 2 issues around it, but overall, I think that's deemed to be positive by shippers. So effectively, it's had a positive contribution to market development. I think we can see that since 2015, because of the CAM network code, and I guess because of some of the other network codes that have been implemented, we've seen a significant reduction of contractual congestion. That used to be a feature of all of the monitoring reports by ACER up to that point in time, saying what a significant problem that was across a whole number of markets. And yes, whilst contractual congestion still exists, instances of it have reduced quite significantly, partly due to the fact that you're now able to book capacity according to what you require. So you can profile your capacity. You don't have to book an annual product for the whole of the year and then not use it half of the year. You can now book 2 quarterly products if that's what your portfolio requirements demand. We've seen a narrowing of price spreads between market areas and increasing price correlation. I think all of these points have been raised in the excellent ACER monitoring reports that are still being done each year. I see the next version of that is a webinar or presentation on that due fairly shortly, and so it'll be interesting to see whether that trend has continued. And I think the other thing we can say is that because of the CAM network code and because of other changes to the market rules, we've seen a significant increase in liquidity. So yes, we still have our dominant hub in Europe, the TTF. We still have the NBP hub, not strictly speaking part of the EU now, but still a second most liquid hub. But we have other hubs in Europe that are catching it up quite significantly, and where significant volumes are being traded on exchanges, on over-the-counter markets. So all in all, I think we can be quite proud of what the CAM network code has achieved. Essentially, I think most people would look upon it as a success story. However, despite this, there's still there's some problems arising, not from the CAM network code itself, but because of the rigidity and because of the need to actually establish this standardized process. Now, Clearly, we can't go back to a click and book system that we had previously, but the CAM network code does limit the opportunities for efficient price arbitrage across the forward curve. And that's basically because what you see in the market, particularly at the moment where prices are exponentially higher than we've been used to and volatility is off the scale, is that the spreads can be greater than the transport costs outside of the period where you have a yearly, quarterly or monthly capacity auction. So although the spread is there, although there's an opportunity to buy capacity or to effectively profitably buy capacity and move gas from the low price market to the high price market, you can't do that because the auction window isn't open. And similarly, you find there's times when the windows are open, the spreads have closed. So effectively, nobody is now interested in capacity because the cost of that capacity is higher than the actual spread itself. And what we've seen is that there's a couple of instances in the UK where merchant TSOs, and I'm thinking here of the Interconnector UK and BBL, have found ways to successfully implement a form of implicit allocation to offer capacity on a more flexible basis when it is commercially attractive to book. And that has been quite successful, and certainly from a TSO's perspective has contributed towards maximising their revenue. So whilst we're not advocating for implicit allocation across the board, and whilst the models that Interconnector and BBL have adopted aren't appropriate to be rolled out across the whole of Europe, the concept of making the capacity more available when it's commercially profitable to purchase, I think has been shown to be successful in those cases. Next slide, please. So just very quickly, we'll go into this in a lot more detail later on in the workshop, but what I wanted to do is just give you a quick summary of the proposal we submitted back in 2019, so nearly 2.5 years ago now. The proposal essentially was to retain the auctions that we have come to know and love in the capacity network code, but to supplement them with uniform price allocation auctions on top of the ascending clock mechanism that is used currently for the quarterly, the yearly and the monthly auctions. So those auctions would carry on exactly the same. There wouldn't be any change to the timetable, to the schedule, to the way they work, but you would supplement them with extra opportunities to buy those products through a single round uniform price allocation auction, which is the auction mechanism that is currently used to auction day ahead and within day capacity. So the auction mechanism is familiar. It's currently being sort of automated and used by the booking platforms the day ahead, but we would advocate applying this also to the yearly, the quarterly and the monthly products. And basically how it would work is that any yearly, quarterly or monthly capacity that remained unsold after that core ascending clock mechanism auction would then be offered on a daily basis through these uniform price allocation auctions until such point as it became usable. There's one or two caveats to that. We propose that you wouldn't actually offer these uniform price allocation auctions on the day an ascending clock auction was taking place. We also suggested that in the period prior to when the ascending auction clock auctions take place, when the TSOs are required to publish how much capacity is being made available and at what price, we propose not having uniform price allocation auctions then, because that would complicate the process if some of that capacity that was being offered in the ascending clock auction subsequently sold. So the whole proposal is intended to keep the core mechanism of the CAM network code that has been built over and that people have got used to, but to add supplementary opportunities here. So essentially what we said is that the uniform price allocation auctions would start on the third business day after the ascending clock auction and would end on the 3rd business day before the product became usable. Each day there would be a separate 1-hour booking window for yearly, quarterly or monthly capacity. So we had suggested 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock European time as the basis for those auctions. That would ensure that the auctions had taken place and were out of the way before the day ahead auction starts under the CAM network code process. Essentially, what we were proposing is to try to make the proposal as consistent in principle with the CAM network code as it could be, but unfortunately there's a couple of areas where it's not fully compliant with the legal text of the network code. So we did, in the proposal, suggest some possible changes to the legal text. One of those changes would need to be, or one of the problems is that it's specifically written in the CAM network code that yearly, quarterly and monthly auctions are via ascending clock. So that potentially could present a problem. It doesn't say that they can't be via UPA auctions, but it's pretty clear that the intention is for those auctions to be under an ascending clock mechanism. And the other aspect where in principle it doesn't strictly comply with the network code is on the issue of the cascading principle. So essentially the cascading principle is such that when you auction your longer term product, your yearly product, what doesn't sell then rolls down into the next longest product, in this case quarterly auction, which then what doesn't sell rolls down into the monthly product. So because we are proposing opportunities to sell that product after that auction has closed, you could argue that that is conflicting with the both the principle and the text of the CAM network code. The other aspect of the proposal that we suggested was that the proposal should be voluntary, so that TSOs and booking platforms could choose whether to hold these auctions or not. The reason we suggested that was to try to speed up the prospect of implementation, because we recognise that there are issues for TSOs and booking platforms. Not all TSOs may be able to manage the additional workload that comes through this proposal within the same time frame, but clearly we think and we believe that some TSOs and some booking platforms might be more minded to do that or to sort of push ahead with that than others. There's also some potential issues around things like competing auctions, whether this mechanism will be appropriate for competing auctions and possible problems that might cause. So rather than essentially propose it as a change to the network code, which everybody has to follow and spend time trying to find an exact mechanism, the perfect mechanism that resolves all of the issues associated with it, we proposed it be implemented on a voluntary basis. And then, as we believe that the proposal has a lot of benefits, will be attractive to both TSOs and to shippers, we think that that would help sell the case to implement it across all of the TSOs and all of the booking platforms, because people could see the benefits. So that was a quick summary of the proposal. I'm sure we'll go into more detail later on, and I'll hand back over to you now, Claude.
Thank you for setting the scenes. And indeed, Steve, you will have other slide of Steve later during the workshop, but we will continue on the presentation of the case with Madeleine, who will give us the result of the public consultation done last year. Madeleine, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Claude. So, good morning, everyone. I will be going through the results of the public consultation that was held in December 2020. And that was held between December 2020 and March 2021. Okay. Apologies. I see that my camera is not working.
I tried to whisper, but since we are in the same room.
It's the camera on this computer that is not working. Okay, apologies.
I can turn my camera to you.
No, it's fine. But now it is. Okay, I can see myself, so it should be fine. Okay, apologies for this. So, as mentioned, the public consultation, it was held between December 2020 and March 2021. And many of you have followed this issue for quite some time, and you are already familiar with these results and the public consultation. So this presentation will be very, very brief, but I do remind you that all the material is available on the FUNC platform, and this presentation is also available on the event page of this workshop. And why we are including this reminder of the public consultation results when it was conducted such a long time ago, and when the market conditions have changed quite a bit since then. It's because the results helped us, both ACER and ENTSOG, very much in our continued work on this issue. And you will also understand this when we go over the key areas of interest of the market participants that we will be also using in our presentations later today. But on to the results themselves. So we had 17 participants in total, but a few of these were also associations that represented a bit more stakeholders. There were 11 participants that registered as network users. And we are also very happy to see that a lot of the participants that took part in the public consultations, they are also here with us today. And we welcome you to be active in the discussions today and give us your perhaps updated feedback or any additional feedback that you might have that might have changed compared to the public consultation. The public consultation itself, it was divided into 3 parts, and the first one focused on the current rules of the network code CAM. And the main conclusions that we could draw here was that the participants, they were in general satisfied with the design of the current auction algorithms. So both the ascending clock auction algorithm and the uniform price auction algorithm. No significant issues were found here. However, the participants, they were less satisfied with the auction calendar itself, and the majority did face some issues with it. And these issues, they were primarily related to the fixed auction dates and the lack of auction opportunities outside of these dates. For the runtimes, there were no specific issues identified with the existing runtimes. However, we did get a lot of requests for new or different runtimes, and alignment with the commodity or the wholesale markets, and also with storage capacity auctions were highlighted as possible improvements areas here. If we move to section 2, this section focused on the EFIT proposal itself, and here it was highlighted that there was a high level of support in general for the problems that were identified by EFIT. And there was also a high support for the suggestion to introduce more auctions for yearly, quarterly, and monthly capacities, with a slight more interest in the monthly capacities. We could not observe any consensus on the question whether any possible solution should be voluntary or mandatory. The most of the participants, they did, however, acknowledge both, let's say, issues and benefits with both methods or with either approach. And then finally, section 3, the last section was dedicated to some additional options or additional feedback that was not connected to the current rules or to the EFIT proposal itself. And the main takeaways here was, again, the additional runtimes and the alignment with the commodity markets. And we also observed a lot of interest in offering capacity further in advance of delivery or offer it closer to the moment of delivery, so closer to the start of the runtime of the product itself. For the final takeaways, this is what we have concluded from the public consultation. So the participants would, in general, like more auctions to get more opportunity to book capacities. There was a lot of focus on securing the monthly auctions, to have more monthly auctions. There were a few comments on improvements to the within-day auctions as well. We also saw a lot of interest in booking either earlier or later, closer to the product start. And there was also quite a lot of requests for new runtimes, both long and short-term products. And these findings or these takeaways is what we have tried to build on for the ENTSOG proposals that we will also be presenting later today. But this is all for now on the results of the public consultation. Thank you very much, and I will hand back to Claude.
Thank you. And so after setting the scenes with Steve and Madeleine, we'll enter in the heart of the discussion with the possible solution with ACER, with Edouard Lebray, who is ACER CAM Task Force Chair and from the French regulator. Please, Edouard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Claude. I hope you can all see me and hear me well. Thank you. So yeah, as you just said, I am Edouard Lebray, and I'm working for the French energy regulator since a few years now, and I am chair of the CAM Task Force since the beginning of the year. So the CAM Task Force, Capacity Allocation Mechanism Task Force, is a working group that gathers both staff from ACER, in particular from the team of Sheila Bartok, and also representatives from national energy regulators. And we work on all aspects of capacity allocation mechanisms and rules. And analyzing FUNC cases is one of our tasks. So I will, in fact, now present you on behalf of the members of the task force the regulators' views on the core principles for allocation of capacity at IPs. And first, next slide, please. I wanted to come back to where the CAM network code comes from, where it actually originates from. So in its Article 16, the gas regulation provides for the principles for allocation of capacity at interconnection points within the EU market. And these main principles are first, the maximization of available capacity, which is made available to market participants. Also, the allocation of capacity via transparent and non-discriminatory mechanisms. This is Article 2, second part of the article. Also, the provision of economic signals and the facilitation of investments in the capacity. And also the compatibility with the markets, with the trading hubs, and the capacity of the rules to adapt to the market conditions. And on this basis, the gas regulation provides for the need for a network code on the capacity allocation rules to be set. This is the Article 8, paragraph 6. And by setting common rules for the technical implementation of capacity allocation mechanisms, the CAM code's aim really is to ensure the necessary degree of harmonization in the rules across the EU, to allow competition between all the shippers, to allow gas to flow according to the price signals. And indeed, the lack of equal and transparent access to the transmission at interconnection points, and having very different rules between member states, but also more importantly from one IP to the other, was seen and is still seen as a key obstacle to achieving this efficient competition that is a condition for a well-functioning internal market for gas. So what are these rules? Next slide, please. The rules which are laid down in the network code, they derive from some principles and instruments that you all very well know, I suppose. Among them are, first, as already discussed by Steve, the famous cascading principle. The idea being that longer-term products, the capacity of longer-term products is auctioned first, and that the unallocated capacity actually cascades towards the shorter-term products. Second is the set-aside rule, which is here to prevent from having all the capacity booked on the long term, and also to allow the shippers to secure capacity to flow gas. And so to ensure this, a share of capacity is set aside for shorter term products. So I think it's 10% for annual yearly capacity and extra 10% for all other products, so quarterly, monthly, and daily products. Another principle is the fact that we have standardized products. A shipper will find the exact same standard products at all IPs within the EU, which actually simplifies the securing of capacity all along the supply route. Also is the common auction calendar for all those products everywhere at IPs. In addition to this, a common way of auctioning the available capacity with a common algorithm. So this is one of the problem that we are analyzing. So the ascending clock algorithm for yearly, quarterly, and monthly products, and uniform price allocation for day ahead and within day products. And also, of course, the bundling of capacity at IPs. So this is actually what was implemented when the first version of the CAM code was set and entered into force in 2013. Next slide, please. But before the CAM code was implemented, before it entered into force, there was actually a variety of allocation rules from one IP to the other, and the EU gas market was fragmented, and we had a very limited number of liquid hubs. And this actually was very well identified in ACER's market monitoring report, one of the first ones in 2012, that depicted very unsatisfactory liquidity of gas hubs and the existence of congestions. And so the introduction of common harmonized rules at that time and at all IPs within the EU was seen as a top priority. And today, almost 10 years later, strong hubs have emerged. The strongest and the most liquid ones are, of course, the Dutch TTF and the British NBP, but you have also very advanced hubs everywhere in Europe. Congestions have significantly reduced and are now more and more rather episodic. And this was also well depicted in Steve Rowe's presentation earlier. And it is obvious that these common rules within the CAM network code have been of good help in delivering these objectives. However, it is true that we, as regulators, do see justification for reassessing their degree of adaptation to both the evolving needs and strategies of market participants, but also to the evolving market context. And what we are living today within the EU on the gas market really leads us to interrogate the need to review the code. Next slide, please. And this is where comes the effort case, which was posted on the functionality platform, requesting for greater flexibility in the allocation of capacity at IPs. And so when it was posted, we first decided to take this opportunity to actually review the code in its entirety, not to solely work on effort proposals. In fact, when it came to launch the public consultation, we could merely have consulted on effects proposal, but we decided to also leave the possibility and to extend the subject matters in the public consultation to other elements of the code. Of course, the auction timings and calendar, but also the auction algorithms, the capacity products, and in particular, the potential need to include other products within this list of standardized products. And the proposals made by EFET and the responses received to the public consultation, as presented by Madeleine, were analyzed in details with great interest from our side. So now, next slide. I wanted to say that since it was posted by EFET, ACER staff, national regulators, and also staff from ENTSOG, we have dedicated a great deal of energy and time to analyze it, to analyze the views of the respondents to the public consultation, to discuss with the TSOs, and we particularly organized a webinar last summer with TSOs. And ENTSOG worked very hard on elaborating potential solutions that Madeleine will present you in a few minutes. And on the regulator's side, an important message is that we do stand by the core regulatory principles that support the internal market for gas, which are first, the efficiency, so efficiency for market participants, but also for end users, keeping in mind the cost efficiency. Second is the transparency. So as we said, the simplicity, the readability of market rules. Also, the prevention of market fragmentation, which we do have now and we don't want to lose. And these really are the guiding principles of our reflection on the solutions we may decide in the end to elaborate and maybe to propose to the European Commission. Next slide. And well, if certain modifications to improve the network code were to be made, they should actually be assessed in views of first, keeping the main principles of the code. I also already discussed it. Among them are the bundling of capacity, the cascading principle. Second, to promote instruments and rules that can accommodate to changing market conditions. And on this aspect, we do see room for improvement in the way the code is done. Some rules are set in a too restrictive way. And also considering both the expected benefits of the potential changes, but also having in mind and being able to assess the costs incurred for both TSOs, for the shippers, and also on the side of booking platforms. And a hint will be provided by representatives of booking platforms later in the workshop. And of course, regulators in the end also have in mind the impact on the final consumer bills. Next slide, please. And from the discussions we had those past few months within the CAMP task force and also with ENTSOG, it seems to us that some measures could be taken in several areas. The first one we have in mind is that we could try to reduce the length of the allocation process of yearly, quarterly, and monthly products. This can be done, we believe, in two ways, either to reduce the duration of auction rounds of the ascending clock auction and also of the time between the rounds. But also it can be done in a different way. We can also propose to replace ACER by uniform price algorithm for particular monthly products. We feel there is maybe more wish or more urgency for monthly products, maybe also for quarterly products. As you know, that UPA is a much faster allocation algorithm. A second area will be to maybe to schedule auctions closer to the runtime start of the products. In particular for quarterly and monthly products, the allocation would then take place at a time when the market participants have a better knowledge of the market conditions and also a better knowledge of their capacity needs, which in turn means that this measure need also to be taken to reduce the duration of the auctions if we keep the ACA. Also, and this is an alternative, monthly products could be auctioned further in advance within a given quarter. This would in fact allow market participants to secure monthly capacity sooner in the month. Another proposal we have on our mind would deal with day-ahead products. They could be auctioned in advance within a given month, because we find this measure could be interesting, as shippers would be able to build up actually new products within a certain month, such as weekend, week, balance of the week, or even balance of the month, which are products which are similar to those that already exist on the commodity markets. And finally, we are also open to making any improvements to the auctioning process for within-day capacity, as we understood from the answers of the public consultation that, and also from the discussions we had with the TSOs, that the process might not be optimal, particularly in terms of timing, the way the within-day products are auctioned. Next slide, I think it's my last slide, to sum up, maybe to say that anyway, any measure proposed should comply with the regulatory principles. I said it already, but also meet a double criteria. The first is that it should meet the effectiveness. That is, that changes should produce results that actually improve the allocation of capacity, and also that changes should be set to better accommodate changing market conditions. So maybe go towards more flexible rules in the network code. But also it should meet efficiency, and we should make sure that the potential changes are actually implementable, that they do work, and that they are cost efficient from a general point of view, from the point of view of network users, from the point of view of CSOs, and also from the point of view of booking platforms. So we'll have plenty of time to discuss this. I will stop there. I don't know if there were any questions on the chat. Otherwise, there's in the third part a time dedicated to questions.
Thank you. No, there are no questions yet. Thank you, Edouard.
Thank you, Claude.
We move directly to Madeleine, who will give us ENTSOG point of view.
Thank you, Claude. Yes, I will go over the proposals from ENTSOG for how to achieve more flexible capacity allocations. And similar to what we heard from the NRA colleagues right now, we also spent quite a lot of time on analyzing the EFIT proposal itself. So we performed similar analysis to what I will be showing you now, also to all of the proposals that we discussed internally. And we looked primarily at these three key parameters or aspects. So we covered potential issues, supposed benefits, and supposed costs and complexities. And for the EFIT proposal, you've already heard the summary of the core suggestions by Steve earlier. So I will go right into the issues, benefits, and costs that we have been discussing within the TSO groups. So for the issues, one of the main issues that we found here was indeed the cascading principle, and that the proposal itself do not respect the core rules of the cascading of products, which we perceive as quite a big challenge here. Another issue which we also wanted to highlight is that the problem with the initial ACA auction lasting too long would remain. So if this wants to be tackled, there needs to be something in addition to this proposal to also tackle these aspects. And something else that we've been discussing, not only for the EFIT proposal, but for a lot of the proposals that are proposing additional auctions, is that, of course, an increased number of auctions could potentially lead to changed booking patterns, which in itself could also increase the volatility of the market, which comes with its own challenges. In terms of the benefits, of course, the increased opportunity for additional allocations and additional auctions would mean increased opportunities also for shippers and for TSOs to buy and sell capacities. It would allow for a more dynamic market. We also acknowledge that the proposal indeed offers a better timing in terms of reduced time between auctions and run times, and also frequencies more in line with the commodity market. And as a final benefit, also the increased market liquidity could also have good effects on the market in general. When it comes to the cost and the complexities, of course, let's say aside from the need for amendments to allow for these additional auctions, the proposal itself requires quite a big structural change to the current CAM network code rules due to these changes primarily in the cascading aspects. So this is also something that, let's say, requires a bit of special solutions in terms of how this new structure could be structured in the CAM network code itself. And then, of course, we have the IT costs associated with, for example, updates to the backend systems, both for, let's say, TSOs and booking platforms, but potentially also shippers have been highlighted here. And when it comes to the resources, here we are thinking primarily about support and human resources, which could be impacted. The more auctions, the more complexities, the more support would be needed, and also potentially more personnel that needs to deal with these additional auctions. If we move to the next slide here, we wanted to quickly give you a highlight of the ENTSOG internal process. So how have we come up with these additional proposals that I will be showing you soon? So, of course, we started this process by looking into the EFIT request and the EFIT proposal. We also spent quite a lot of time on analyzing the public consultation responses. And in addition to this, we also had a lot of internal discussions where we got a lot of feedback from the TSOs themselves that was both related to the EFIT request and the piece of responses, but also additional items or topics that might not have come up so far in the issue. And all of this resulted in the options that we will be presenting shortly. The aim and the scope of this entire process was primarily to identify and answer some of the key questions from the market players. We also wanted to strike a balance between having flexibility on one hand, but also having foreseeability on the other. Both, let's say, from a TSO perspective, to be able to plan the capacity allocations accordingly, but also from the shipper's perspective. And what we also factored in here is that we wanted to uphold some of the core principles of a capacity allocation, which we heard previously from Edouard. And finally, we wanted to find solutions or options that could offer we wanted to offer a variety of options that could also be combined with each other and that had different levels of complexity for the future discussions with the market here today. What we wanted to highlight in terms of, let's say, the scope and what is missing from this analysis that we have done is that although we have had some high-level discussions on this, we still believe that there should be a more detailed evaluation of each option's compatibility with the current CAM network code and the required amendments. So for the presentation today, we have a high-level primary analysis of this, but there are no, let's say, concrete amendments proposal made yet. And indeed, what is also missing is the further market input to understand which proposals are more relevant from primarily the shipper and the booking platform perspective, so that we know which options would be suitable to go forward with. And then finally, there's also no detailed cost-benefit analysis included, even though we have included cost and complexity as one of the parameters in the analysis. If we move to the options themselves, I wanted to quickly show you this overview slide, where we can see that we have three main proposals that we want to present to you today, which are also accompanied by a few additional proposals. So we have proposal one, which is quite simple and straightforward. It's simply to shorten the bidding rounds of the ascending auction algorithm. And this would also allow to include more rounds within the same timeframes as before. Proposal two is what we're calling the light alternative to the EFIT proposal. And for this proposal, we have also included there exists an example auction calendar that to illustrate how this proposal would look like if it were to be implemented and used for future auction calendars. And then proposal three is what we're calling the full alternative to the EFIT proposal. And also this proposal have an example auction calendar. And for the additional proposals, there are quite a few of them, and they are targeting different areas. Mostly they are targeting items that do not fully fall within the scope of the initial EFIT request, but they have come up either in the public consultation or in the discussions with the TSOs. And also for the additional proposals, a few of them have example auction calendars, but not all of them. I also wanted to stress that at this point in time, there is no preferred option. However, all of the options, they are deemed as viable, let's say from the ENTSOG perspective and from the TSO perspective. And they can also be combined with each other to create, let's say, targeted proposals. If we move to the next one, this is just the summary, the analysis of proposal one, so shortening the bidding rounds of the ascending clock auction. As mentioned, this is quite a simple proposal. It's very straightforward. The shortening of the bidding rounds is something that we would like to, let's say, discuss here with you today to find what is an appropriate, let's say, time frame for these bidding rounds. An example from our side was to shorten it to 30 minutes instead of 1 hour between the bidding rounds, and or also reduce the time of the first bidding round from 3 hours to 1 hour, and then the subsequent ones from 1 hour to 30 minutes. But something that we have also been discussing in connection to this proposal is whether or not the concrete run times of the bidding times could, let's say, not be defined in the code itself. And instead, the network code CAM could state that they have to be published at a later stage, perhaps in connection to when the auction calendar is produced. And this would indeed make the CAM network code more flexible, and we could more easily or faster react to changed market conditions. In terms of the issues, benefits, and costs here, of course, one of the main issues here is that we do not fully address the original request from EFIT, since we are not offering anything, any additional auctions here. And as mentioned, the timing feasibility, both for shippers and booking platforms, is something that we would need to further assess, and we would need more further information on this. In terms of the benefits, well, more bidding rounds could be held during the same time frame if the time frames are shortened. And the transport customers, they would know earlier if they got the capacity or not, and they can act accordingly. And this in itself could possibly increase the liquidity on the wholesale or commodity markets. In terms of cost and complexity, we do believe that there is a network code amendment required to change the bidding rounds. And here we know that the implementation time might be long, depending on the timing of this. Compared to the EFIT proposal itself, the costs would be smaller, but we do not rule out that there might be some IT costs involved in changing the bidding rounds. And the feasibility for this proposal for the booking platforms is also something that we believe should be further assessed. I will move to the next one, and we can see later on if we have some additional questions. So for the proposal 2, And as we mentioned earlier, this is the light alternative to the EFIT proposal. And here, the core of this proposal entails to move or postpone the annual yearly auction closer to the start of the product itself. We do suggest to keep the ascending clock auction algorithm for the annual yearly auctions here. And then this proposal also entails to move the quarterly and monthly deadlines as well. And after this has been done, the final step would be to also add additional monthly auctions. This could be done either subsequent to the ascending clock auction algorithm or by using UPA in substitution of ascending clock auction. And indeed, if the ascending clock auction algorithm stays, this proposal could be combined with the proposal we saw in option 1 for shortening the bidding rounds. And for this proposal, in terms of issues, benefits, and costs and complexity, for the issues we have been discussing again that, of course, this proposal does not fully address the request from EFIT. We do not achieve the additional auctions except for the additional monthly products, which was initially requested. And another issue here, let's say, would be that this proposal does not provide any earlier auctions, which was also something that came up quite a lot in the public consultation itself. So here we are only moving the auctions closer to the starting point, but there is no possibilities to book further ahead. In terms of the benefits, one of the big benefits with this proposal would be that shippers would be able to book capacity at a moment with higher visibility of the market conditions. So again, closer to the product start. And we would have additional opportunities to book monthly products. And falling back, let's say, on the public consultation results, what we saw there was that the monthly products were the products that were most frequently requested to have additional auctions for. For the costs and complexities, here we anticipate that the changing auction dates would be costless, but changing the algorithms or adding auctions could have a cost, both, let's say, in terms of from the TSO perspective, booking platform perspective, and shipper perspective. However, per the preliminary assessment, we believe that some changes here could be achieved within the current legal framework of the CAM Network Code, but we do believe that the complete impact on the network code and also on the CMP guidelines should be assessed. Also, the feasibility for the booking platforms is something that should be further assessed to fully understand the implications of this proposal. Finally, we do anticipate that the overall costs would be lower for this proposal compared to the development of either the EFIT proposal or the proposal 3, which I will be presenting now. So proposal 3, the full alternative to the EFIT proposal. Here, the core aspects of this proposal is that we would like to follow the CAM calendar for the yearly, quarterly, and monthly products, but introduce additional UPA auctions as well. We are suggesting to keeping the ascending clock auction for the initial annual yearly auction, and then offer yearly products on a continuous basis through the UPA till the auction date of the next shortest product. So in this case, the quarterly capacities start. And here, after this, the quarterly and the monthly products, they would be offered through the UPA from the start, and then they would also be offered on a continuous basis. This would mean that after the yearly capacity has been offered, all 4 quarters will start being offered on a continuous basis. And then once we reach the auction date of the first month in the first quarter, that quarter is no longer offered, and instead all of the 3 months covering the period of that quarter, let's say quarter 1, they would be offered at the same time. and they would be offered at the same date as the first month. So for example, if we have quarter 1, in that quarter we have months 1, 2, and 3, all 3 of them would be offered at the same date as month 1. And then all 3 months will keep being offered until they are either sold out or until the start of the product runtime. And why we are proposing this structure instead of, let's say, the EFIT proposal, is that with this structure, we would still be respecting the cascading rules and the cascading principle. And we still believe that we can offer a fair amount of additional auctions for all of the products, the yearly, quarterly, and monthly, both earlier and closer to the runtime start. What is not included in this proposal per se is any changes to the day ahead and the within day auctions. This has been kept to the side, and we will see those proposals later in the additional proposals. And we have also not made any changes at all to the set aside rules. They are proposed to stay the same. With this proposal, we also believe that the interruptible products should still be able to be offered in the same way as today. So if the corresponding firm capacity is not offered at all, sold out, or sold with auction premium. And also for this proposal, we have anticipated some issues, some benefits, and some costs and complexities. And if we start with the issues, as with the EFIT proposal, the additional auctions could potentially lead to increased volatility in the markets. In addition to this, also the IT stability and availability becomes a question. So this will, however, also depend, of course, on the frequency of additional auctions, which is something that we will also come back to later. And lastly, the operational processes in dealing with these additional auctions could be challenging. And here we would need further input, both from booking platforms, but also from the shippers, to fully understand how their operational processes would be impacted by this proposal. In terms of the benefits, also here, it's quite similar to the EFIT proposal itself. So first of all, it covers most of the shippers' requests for greater flexibility. We have the additional auctions. We have the possibility to book further in advance, but also closer to the product start. And again, also better timing. We have reduced time between auction and runtime, and frequency is more in line with the commodity markets. There is an increased opportunity for shippers and producers to sell the capacity. And again, increased market liquidity would also be one of the benefits. When it comes to the costs and complexities, of course, the detailed costs are still to be analyzed. It is, however, fair to assume that this proposal, together with the EFIT proposal, they require the greatest changes to the current auction structures. However, I do want to point out that from the ENTSOG and TESOL perspective, this proposal, it is still deemed as a viable one. Otherwise, we would not have included it in the presentation. Nevertheless, again, operational processes, they might be impacted, which is, let's say, both a cost and a complexity aspect that we hope to get further input from you on today. As mentioned before, impact on the network code rules and also the CMP rules needs to be further assessed. And especially for the CMP, the removing of the ascending clock auction might make it necessary to rethink how we in the future could determine congestion. I want to also cover maybe the additional proposals before we see if we have some questions. And for the additional proposals, as mentioned before, these are things that have come up in the discussions or that have come up in the public consultation, but that are not, let's say, within the scope of the core request from EFIT. One of the additional proposals that we have been discussing is to use the UPA, so the Uniform Price Allocation algorithm, for all products from the beginning, replacing the ACA, but not, let's say, this proposal does not include offering the additional auctions. We also had a proposal for when the ascending clock auction takes too long. So when we have an ACA with a long duration, we could step out from the ACA and open instead a UPA. The issue here, however, would be then perhaps to determine how long is too long for the duration of the ACA. So when should this option come into effect? Another thing that we have been discussing is the UPA rules themselves and the possibility to replace pay as clear UPA with either single round pay as bid or pay as clear UPA with one bid. And I will come back to this on a later slide. For the within day auctions, we also had a few considerations. So one of the proposals were for the first round of within day auctions for the 24-hour products to finish earlier and to introduce then additional within day auctions after. So the first round of within day auctions, which is also then called or known as within day 24, could be held on gas day D-1. It could be closed earlier, for example, at 10 p.m. instead of currently 2:30 a.m. And then we could hold the additional within the auctions between the 10 p.m. window and the 2:30 a.m. window to also allow for additional opportunities here for the within day products. In terms of options for addressing additional or different runtimes, here we are focusing mainly on seasonal products, but also a few other ones. So I do want to highlight, however, that these proposals are still under discussion and they do require a bit more analysis. But for the adding of auctions for remaining days of the month on a day ahead basis, what we have been discussing here is that this would correspond to the request for weekly or balance of month products. And simply put, this proposal would, for a given month, allow for all the remaining days to be offered as separate day ahead products. And for the second proposal here, so the auctions spanning 2 gas years, this proposal is targeted to allow for the seasonal products. So extending on a continuous basis the auctioning to cover 2 gas years. It would follow, let's say, the same structure as for the proposal 3. So this proposal would just be extended to cover 2 gas years, basically. And as mentioned, this would correspond to the request of seasonal products, and especially the offering then of more quarters up front. So there will be 8 quarters ahead instead of 4. This would allow transport customers to be able to build seasons. I will also maybe cover this slide as well before some questions. So we have included this slide here. It is intended to illustrate how the proposals compare to each other. And I know that there's a lot going on here on this slide, so let me take you through some of it. First of all, the colors here, gray and pink, there's no significant difference here. The only thing is that we wanted to differentiate between what is the EFIT proposal in the gray and all of the ENTSOG proposals in the pink. The bottom axis shows all of the proposals in different columns, and on the left-hand side, you have the different components, so either requested by EFIT or taken from the public consultation on the different rows. And in some of the boxes here, both the grays and the pink ones, you also find some additional information to further explain the different parts of these items in these proposals. So, for example, if your key interest here is to have more auction opportunities, and you are especially keen on having more monthly auctions, you might want to have a look on this row here. Let me take you through it. So adding UPA auctions for month only, and then you can look at this row and you can see which of the proposal covers this aspect and how they fulfill it. Or depending on if you want to book earlier or closer to the runtime start, you could look at these two rows here at the bottom. So book earlier or book closer to the product start. And you can then see which of the proposals would fulfill this item. So we have included this as a visual aid, let's say, for you to be able to compare the proposals. And this is also one of the reasons why we wanted to share the material ahead of time with you. Quickly, some of the additional considerations. So these are items that have been identified in the discussions within the TSOs that should be further investigated together with you here today with the market and also together with the NRA colleagues. So first of all, the possibility to amend the CAM network code in a way that could allow for future changes without the need to further adapt the network code rules would be something worth looking into. For example, introducing a possibility to modify auction frequency, dates, or even form without amending the CAM network code itself. Also, the frequency of additional UPAs is something that we want to discuss with you here today to understand better what is the appropriate frequency, how many additional auctions would be deemed needed from your point of view. And then also as mentioned before, the method of pricing for UPA auctions is something we believe could be worth a review. And here it's, let's say, the pay as bid versus the pay as clear. And currently, we do believe that pay as clear could pose a potential risk for manipulation of the clearing price. And pay as bid could, in that case, be used to value capacity according to the shipper's availability and interest. However, some pro rata or other rules might be needed to allocate bids having the same price. But in essence, the capacity would be remunerated according to the market value. And I anticipate that there might be some questions for me, but before that, I also wanted to show a few questions that we hope we could discuss with you here later today, and after the break, of course. But we have a few questions for each of the proposals, and they are targeting things that we believe are the core questions that we would need some input from you on here today. But I will leave this on for a moment, and I will also look back to Claude to see if there are anything from the chat that we could address from the participants right now.
Thank you, Madeleine. So we have two questions. So the first question is one of the most relevant of the day, and I will give it to Chila. Any idea when the proposal will be finalized and implemented and for which period onwards? Chila, please, you want to react to that one?
I'm coming in. I have a problem with my camera. I don't know whether I can come up, but very quickly, there is a short and a long answer to your question. So if there is no urgency for the issue, which is then approved either from this discussion or the survey that we would launch following this workshop, then we plan to close the case in December, and we would issue an issue solution on the functionality platform. In the case where we can identify clear benefits to change quickly the network code, which we would understand following the survey that we would launch after the workshop, in that case, we will consult the Commission and we will see how this request for a change in the CAM network code would be channeled further. And we would understand that more or less about September. We will also publish the results of the survey that we would launch after the workshop. And it's very key that if you see that there is an urgency to optimize differently the auction processes, you clearly need to raise what are the benefits about such change. Without those benefits, we would not be able to claim urgency, and we would not be able to start any change process or at least even launch any request for a change process before the big packages are under discussion. You all know that we are discussing the hydrogen and the decarbonized gas market package. And the logical frame would be that we would change higher level legislation along with the discussions of the European institutions, and following that, we would change network codes. So the ball is really in your hands, and that is all that I can say at this point.
I think you will have a lot of reaction on that after the break, and we'll take the two more detailed questions maybe after the break.
Okay.
And no,
Yeah, that's fine.
And we have to launch the Slido question.
Yes. So we during the break, of course, make sure to take your break. But also, if you want something to do in the meantime, we have prepared a Slido poll for you. You should be able to access it now. If you either use your phone and scan the QR code on the screen right now, or you can also go to the website slido.com and use the hashtag here to come to the correct Slido. And you will have a few questions that you can answer, and we will be showing the results later today.
Yeah, and I think I've not forgotten anything else. So we stop for a break until 10:30, and so we'll put it in the chat back at 10:30. Thank you.
Hello again, and welcome back to this second part of this workshop. Let me first remind you that the Slido polls are still open, so there are a few more minutes to respond to them so that we can collect the results and then later discuss them. In this second part, well, we heard first in the morning all these proposals for a more flexible offer of capacity. We also heard about the regulatory principles. Now it's time to hear from an important stakeholder, namely the booking platforms, who have the important task to, of course, implement all these capacity allocation procedures. We will have all three of them today, and I will introduce you to them in alphabetical order of the organizations that they represent. So the first one is GSA, and that is Stanislav Besetkowski. And apologies for the pronunciation. I hope it was close enough. After that, we will have Prisma with Paulo Maffeis. And then the last one is the RBP platform with Roland Nudge. So Stanislav, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much for invitations, for hearing the opinion of the platforms. Generally, we are as a booking platforms as for the market, and the service is service. So what will be decided, we will be obliged and will be honored and privileged to fulfill this your expectations or requirement, especially the legal requirements. But we make some short assessments of this challenges. It was organized by proposal. So can you display the first slide? Okay, thank you. So the first proposal was regarding the shorter binding runs and more binding runs. So from our side is, let's say, there's no additional costs, and it's, let's say, relatively easy to implement. And from our side, if we are talking about the shorter rounds, we would like propose the let's say the hourly rounds. But what is important, that's each rounds will be about 45 minutes with technical breaks 15 minutes. So that's each round will be start at full hour, then 45 minutes of the bindings, and then 15 minutes for kind of the results. So this is our impressions regarding the first proposal. So we are flexible for this, and let's say welcome. For the second set of this, it's a little bit more difficult because there's the postpone of yearly auctions closer to start gas year. I think is no problem. It's also easy for stipulation for this. But regarding this, adding this additional ones, we we would like underline that also the adding the additional ascending clock auctions for the same products. Okay, there will be some effort, but it's okay. But one issue which we would like avoid is the mixing the different algorithms for auctioning, the ACA and UPA for the same products. And this is due to I think it could make some also challenges for us, and also it's more complicated for us. And what is the additional issues is the questions about efficiency or transparency, because when you have the same products with a few auctions cycles, not cycles, but a few auctions, the issue is what happens if appears in some auction premium. And anyway, it will be some amount of the capacity which will be to offer for during the next auctions. What will be the base price for this? And from our understanding of the market value of capacity, we expect that during the next auctions, the basic price will be not just the primary tariff price, but should be the, let's say, the result of the previous auction. So And this makes a little bit life more complicated also from the, and need some to develop some additional issues. So this changes we estimated as let's say about 3 months of the working hours effort. This additional ascending clocks is about 1 month of the working hours. And going to the most complicated version third. Could you switch? This is the similar one, so that's we can just repeat that we would like avoid the two kinds of algorithms for the same products. But anyway, this is additional challenge as we recognize. This is the so in the same time we have the auctions for different products. So this from one side is the issues of the system loads. But okay, everything is possible. There's questions about the cost and efforts, but we would like also pay your attention for the ergonomic issues. It was also mentioned by the colleagues from the ACER that some changes as a result should be easier, transparent, effective. So if we have the many auctions available in the same time, or will be in some hours will be this one, the next hours will be this. So we are going to some, let's say to ergonomy. So this we would like pay attention for the ergonomy issues. You know, this is also I think important for have the easy interface for this. So this regarding this repeating auctions, because it's the same as the previous one, we also like pay attention, underline the issues regarding the auction premiums from the previous results for the market value for the capacity. So if you regarding this, let's say the set of the different proposals. So for the next slides, could you switch? Okay. So it's as kind of the summarizing. So this the new calendar is no issue. It's easy to adjust to stipulate it. Change of the term of the monthly auction is also easy one. Anyway, a little bit not afraid if there are from one side the expectations that as much as possible close to the runtime and in the same we asking about on the beginning of the month, which is much longer, farther than the current one. But anyway, from the booking platform it's up to you. It's easy to provide these changes. We would like avoid this different algorithms for the same product. And if it will be a lot of auctions in the same time, that could generate more peak loads. So maybe it will be necessary to spend some additional costs for hardware for efficiency of systems. So it's okay, it's reachable, but make some additional challenge. Let's if you could say this next slide. So this as a summary, the COPA for all products it took a little bit 1.5 months of workloads for this long durations. And then here is also the mixing of this algorithms. It's also a little bit also about months, maybe less short. This estimations of the efforts, time efforts is based on the some roughly descriptions of this one. If when we will got the detailed description of algorithms or changes which should be done, this times maybe will be a little bit more stipulated, maybe some more 2 weeks longer, maybe shorter, depends on the final sets of this. But anyway, you can see that's the longest challenges with some additional runtimes, additional products. It's, let's say, the maximum one is about 3 months of working hours, maybe with test, maybe with some expanded for some additional tests. So from our side, it looks as a time effort in this case we are talking. Yes. So if you could switch to the next one. So this as I mentioned, all issues are, let's say, just indicative and estimated. we need the more detailed descriptions what should be done. What also we would like pay attention, that's not only the changes on the booking platform side, yes, because this also in most cases some changes will be necessary in the backend system of TSOs. So let's say be careful about these changes, yes. And we will see which options will be, if any, and then maybe sometimes the updates of hardware will be necessary. That was not taken about this. We were also asked for the, let's say, estimate not only the time effort, but also the, let's say, the level of costs of this realization of this proposal. So for the next slide, we estimated as, let's say, the relative ones. So you see this, using this two algorithms is the most costly toy. Of course, the shorter binding rounds or postpone the yearly auctions is, let's say, the costless, because it's just the parameterization, so it's no changes in the system, yes. And the other issues are more expensive, less expensive. It depends on which configurations will be applied and so on. So this is just the overview of the relative cost between different options. So from our side, if you could say next slides, from our side, I just can underline that the booking platforms are for the users, for TSOs, for the market. So finally, we will apply as will be decided, yes. So, but anyway, it's not everything is so easy, and or some small technical issues, as many times underlined Walter Boltz, that's this technicalities is just small technical issues, but sometimes there are significant. So we are ready for this, but it will be time, it will be needed a little bit time, also some costs which will be covered by TSOs and then by market users. So from our side is everything. So I would like, again, thank you very much for invitations, and if there are some questions, so let's ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanislav. I do not see any questions for clarification, so we can continue with Paolo from Prisma platform. Paolo, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Nico, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear and see you.
Thanks a lot. Before starting, let me thank ACER and ENTSOG for the possibility to present Prisma View to this interesting topic that is, I think, relevant for the future of our industry. Nico, can you go to the next slide, please? So we did an internal high-level assessment of the proposed modification of the auctioning process, the three of ENTSOG and the one proposed initially by IFED, and we will present three different criteria that we assessed. One is the difference with the existing process that gives a clear indication if we see a significant change from what we are doing today, and could be also considered as a proxy if this will go in a direction of improving the market. We assess also the proposal taking consideration the complexity of implementation. Also, from our side, we did an assessment only on the cost that Prisma will implement and the technical difficulties that Prisma will have to face. So we didn't do any assessment on the possible cost of TSOs and or shipper to adjust to the one of the proposed model. And also we assess the time needed for implementing the changes. Nico, can you go to the next slide, please? So starting from the first proposal, the one of shortening the bidding rounds of a Schelling clock. This, from our point of view, is not a significant change to what is implemented today. So we don't see significant improvements to what we have today. The complexity is low. It's something that we can do in a matter of days. So to change the auction calendar to have a shorter bidding rounds, and also the cost from Prisma and the technical complexity from Prisma side is really minor. This is something that can be easily implemented without significant effort. The second proposal, the light alternative to the IFED proposal, because this proposal was with conditions. In this slide, you see the most complicated one. So is moving the dates of some product, the starting dates of some products, and also having the possibility that monthly auction will start with an ascending clock auction, and there will be afterwards a uniform price auction. So we, in this slide, you see this assessment, take illustration also the optionality of this different algorithm for the same product. So the difference with existing process is higher, because we will have 2 monthly auction, plus there will be some changes in the date. The yearly auction will take place, so we see an improvement to the existing situation. The complexity from our side to change this one is medium. We are facing the same situation as the friends of gas system ocean, because we will have to have some logic to start an auction using the ascending clock mechanism or the uniform price. The time from implementing this proposal is higher, because changes will have to be done on the Prisma platform, but we believe also there will be changes on the TSO side. For the third proposal, so the full alternative solution proposed by ENTSOG, the one that is closer to the IFED proposal, we see significant changes to the existing rules, changes that can be perceived going in a positive direction. The complexity in this case will be higher, so we will need to change not just the auctioning process, so giving the possibility to offer product with ascending clock mechanism, and for the same product in different moment in time also with a uniform price algorithm. But from our point of view, there will be also the need to work with a market participant to the shipper in order to improve the usability of the platform. We will have many auctions running in parallel, and we have to guarantee that the platform will be easy to manage and will be easy to identify which auction are relevant for the shipper. So in this case, also you see this one from the implementation time. If this would be the final proposal and the final version of the new CAM network code, we see that we need to have a significant discussion with the market participant and the shipper in order to identify which will be the best development of a new graphical user interface to allow shipper to take part in an efficient way in auction. Shipper, we don't have to think about only the shipper that are buying capacity every single day, because they are absolutely expert in the processes, but also shipper that are buying capacity only once per year, mainly yearly products. So this shipper, not, let's say, super expert in using booking platform, they should be able to buy capacity without problems and without a significant effort. Similar assessment from the pure platform point of view is of the IFED proposal. So we believe there will be significant changes with existing processes, probably going in the right direction, so giving more moment in time in which capacity is available for the market participant to be procured. The complexity will be similar to the IFED proposal. From a platform point of view, will be similar, and also the implementation time. So these two proposals are the ones that probably are going in the direction of making capacity available more often, but we have to foresee in the implementation plan specific session in which the booking platform will work together with the market participant in order to improve the usability of the platform, because there will be, in both cases, a significant amount of auctions. Nico, maybe you can go to the next slide, please. We also assess the question that ENTSOG raised concerning the first question, if the timing of the ascending clock should be shortened. We believe, because we experienced in the last month a specific auction with shorter bidding rounds, that 30 minutes could be enough for yearly, quarterly, monthly. If the final solution will still foresee that yearly, quarterly, and monthly auction will go with ascending clock. From replacing ascending clock for a uniform price, from a pure booking platform point of view, this change can be done. We just need to have a proper implementation period. Finally, is on the frequency of uniform price for yearly, quarter, monthly. On this specific question, we don't have a clear answer. What we need to do, what the stakeholders will need to do, is to assess and identify a right balance between the frequency of marketing capacity product and the technical and procedural complexity of these processes. Let me finish that, as mentioned by Stanislav, also Prisma will implement what will be at the end the final decision of the stakeholders, and we are more than happy to keep discussing these topics in order to find the best solution for the market. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Paolo. Before we go to the next presentation, let me just remind you once again that the Slido polls are still active and that we would like to collect your input as a way to foster discussion. These are not, of course, nuanced positions. There will be time in the post-workshop survey to collect more detailed information from you, but for now, just if you could fill in the Slido, that would be great. And then we continue with the next presentation, which is Roland for RBP platform.
Thank you, Nico. I would like to also thank you the opportunity to participate in this working group and that we can discuss this very important topic. My name is, let me introduce myself. My name is Roland Nagy, working for RBP and FGSZ as a product owner for RBP and the backend system of the TSO FGSZ. So, okay, thank you, Nico. We can go on. Just a short introduction of RBP for those who are not familiar with RBP and not booking capacities on our platforms. We are currently present in 12 countries, 9 EU and 3 non-EU countries, working with 17 TSOs, and since this April, we are also working with one storage operator, and more than 300 network users are using our platform for booking capacities. And beside capacity bookings, we are also offering services for TSOs, backend systems, and trading services as well. Okay, thank you, Nico. We can go on. Okay, so this is a slide from ENTSOG presentation. We saw that this is a very good slide that summarizes the proposals and the components of the different proposals. We just added the different colors for the different components in terms of cost and difficulty in development. The green ones are already supported in RBP without any further development. The light yellow ones are with small developments, and the red ones need major developments based on our current understanding of the situation. And this light orange, it could be easy to implement or already supported, or it could be very different and have major development costs and time, but it depends on the frequency of the auction. So let's start with the components, and I try to go through the components, not the proposals. Okay, from down. The first 2-3 components, the postpone of yearly, quarterly, and monthly auction times, and the auctions anticipated are already supported by RBP. It's not a problem. We can do it at any time. It's also true for the shorter ascending clock bidding rounds. Just a question of setup in our system, so it's also not a problem. To replace ascending clock auction by uniform price auction is also supported by RBP, so we can run monthly, yearly, and quarterly auctions with uniform price auctions. And yeah, the problems just comes here with the adding uniform price auctions after ascending clock auctions for monthly, yearly, and quarterly products. Here is the question of frequency. If we say that the result will be that we can add 1, 2, or only a couple of uniform price auctions after the standard currently running auctions, then we think that it would not be a problem for us. But if we are talking about EFET proposal or proposal 3 with really continuous auctioning, then it would cost a major development in our system or much bigger administration from our personnel. We are totally agree with Stanislav and Paolo that really we should focus on to find the balance between the frequency, the costs, the technical complexity, and also totally agree with Stanislav. Also, but Paolo also mentioned that the layer, or how to say, the user interface has to be very well precisely planned in order to have a good view for the network users to find the right auction. So it's also true for the continuous UPA auctions over one gas year. And what about the additional proposals? The alternative. Sorry, thank you. So as you can see, the alternative step out from the ascending clock auction with the uniform price auction would be a major development for us. The pay as bid auction algorithm is we estimated that it's a smaller development. We also need some development for the within day auctions. If we would like to change the first closing time and add additional within day auction, and the balance of months, or just to say the seasonal products, if we would like to introduce them, then it would be also a major development for RBP. Okay, thank you. For the next slide, please. So what is the ideal length of the bidding rounds? We think that all rounds could be one hour with a 1 hour break. We do not suggest to have shorter rounds because we think that it could be difficult for network users interested in multiple network points, mainly if these network points are offered on different platforms. to participate on the auctions, monitor and evaluate all the auctions. So we think that we should keep this at least 1 hour for the bidding rounds and 1 hour for the breaks as well. What are your thoughts about the proposals replacing the sending clock with uniform price? We think that this would significantly simplify the booking process for the shippers. So we support this proposal. Yeah, and what are your thoughts on the frequency? We think that this is a major question. For example, the EFET proposal and proposal 3, we think that this should may lead to a fragmented capacity process towards first come first serve allocation type. So we think that the auctioning, the idea or the meaning of auctioning would be lost by introducing this continuous auctions. If we take the proposal of IFA 3 times an IPA auction every day, we think that we can introduce first come first serve process. And that would be much easier for the network users, for the platform operators, for the TSOs, instead of just running auctions after each other. It would be the same as within the auctions where we run multiple within the auctions without any biddings and any overbookings. So honestly, we do not see any sense in this suggestion. But of course, if this would be the final solution, yeah, we are ready to introduce it. But please bear in mind that we think that with this suggestion, the allocation process would be more like first come first serve, not auctioning. Okay, and the last one, a general question. What should be included in CAM? We think that only the auction algorithms and how should the algorithms work have to be included in CAM, and all others, the timing, the length of the bidding rounds, and so on, should be kept in ENTSOG auction calendar in order to have a flexible solution for us to change the process if needed. Also, bear in mind the implementation time for shippers, TSOs, and booking platforms as well. Okay, thank you. The next one, and I thought, yeah. Okay, thank you for us again. Thank you again for the opportunity. And as I mentioned, we are ready to participate in this question, debate, or work, how to say it. And as I just totally agree with my colleagues that whatever is the outcome, we will do it and implement it.
Thank you, Ronald.
Okay,
and
thank you.
Also, thank you again to Stanislav and Paolo for giving us a better view about the feasibilities and also the efforts required in terms of resources and costs. That's an important element to consider when discussing these changes. So now we continue with reactions to what we heard so far. And the first up will be Steve Rose, that we heard also this morning. And then afterwards, there will be Marco representing GIE. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the colleagues from the booking platforms for giving their feedback and their information. It's very good to hear how they see things and the practicality of implementing what we are proposing or a possible alternative solution, because that's obviously a key element of how quickly and how effectively we can take any of these proposals forward. Okay, what I want to do quickly now is just provide some comments on the three.
Steve, your camera seems not to be working.
Okay, showing me up on here. Let me try again. Is that better?
Yes, okay. You're back. Sorry for the interruption.
I'm not sure what happened then. Yes, so a quick reaction to the three proposals that ENTSOG have tabled. Also provide some comments on the additional proposals that were in the presentation and that came from the results of the consultation, and then just some concluding remarks before we get into, I guess, a more detailed discussion around some of the elements and some of the issues. Okay, so next slide, please. So looking at proposal 1, shortening the bidding rounds for ACER auctions. I mean, shorter bidding rounds may help. They may help traders know sooner whether they've been allocated capacity, and that's perhaps particularly relevant or important in volatile markets. But I think there's some sort of issues around that. I mean, the ACER auctions close pretty quickly when there's no congestion. So it's not that every auction is drawn out and that every auction is not sort of closing or closing close to the point where the capacity becomes usable. And I mean, we have seen particularly recently some monthly auctions that have failed to close or that have closed right at the very last minute. And that's basically because we're seeing such huge spreads and such volatile spreads. And you know, that is untypical of perhaps what we've been used to. We have seen this happen before, but on very rare occasions. Now it's happening perhaps more often because the market circumstances have changed. But there are ways of actually sort of overcoming that. I mean, we've been trying to encourage TSOs to take account of the visible spreads in the market and the high volatility that we've seen over the last 9 months when they come to decide what the large price steps and what the small price steps should be in the ascending clock option. Because, you know, if you just use the 5-cent level that you used sort of last year, when the spread is sort of 8 or 9 euros a megawatt hour, then you're going to have quite a few rounds before the auction closes. So I think if TSOs can more proactively look at what's happening in the market, look at where the spreads are, and set the large price steps at levels more appropriate so that, you know, the auction can clear within the period of time available, that would be a way around getting over the problem of perhaps having to shorten the bids to cram more auction steps in. And I think, again, it's, you know, from our perspective, we as a company, I don't think would have any problems at all moving towards half-hour sort of auction windows or half-hour bidding rounds. But I mean, the network code has been developed to try and accommodate all network users, so not just the large ones like RWE, but all of the network users, all of the occasional capacity bookings, and having a more quick auction process and bidding rounds, I think, could conceivably be a problem to small shippers and possibly to some of the TSOs. I think from what I heard earlier, I think the booking platforms probably wouldn't have a problem with it, but as has been mentioned, you know, there's back-end processes associated with these auctions which the TSOs have to manage, and I'm not sure all of the TSOs would welcome a move to half-hour bidding windows. But yeah, I mean, it's from our perspective, and I think probably from most of EFET membership's perspective, it's not a no-no, but we don't see it as being vital, and we think there are other ways around of tackling the problems that perhaps you're trying to solve by shortening the auction bidding rounds. And I think in terms of proposal one, I mean, crucially, the key problem with it is it doesn't offer any new opportunities to auction capacity outside of the existing calendar. That's the problem that EFET is trying to address. Yes, there are issues around auctions dragging out and not closing within the period of time, but that's not what the FUNC proposal was to resolve. The FUNC proposal is to give more opportunities for people to buy capacity when it's profitable to do so outside of the core CAM network code auction calendar and process that we know at the moment. And I think, again, probably all of these proposals fall into this camp. Yes, maybe it's a good thing, maybe we should do it, but it still requires a network code change. So we still face the issue of, well, how do we overcome that barrier? So moving on to proposal 2, the light alternative to the EFET proposal, pushing the yearly and the quarterly auction dates back closer to the start dates may suit other shippers, but perhaps not others. I mean, the dates in the calendar have been sort of in place for 5 or 6 years now. People are used to it. Yes, that may not suit everybody, but I think our proposal basically is trying to say, well, yes, okay, we're keeping the dates as is in the calendar. Everybody has got used to those. Everybody operates to that, but we're just offering more opportunities to buy after that date. So rather than pushing the date back to a point a lot closer to where the capacity becomes usable, we're keeping that original date and we're offering more supplementary auctions between the time of the auction and between the time the capacity becomes usable. The additional monthly capacity auctions after what is now, I think, the mid-month annual capacity auction, it does offer more flexibility to sell monthly capacity, so that's, I guess, a positive. But effectively, it's only for 1 week less than the EFET proposal. So the EFET proposal was proposing to bring forward the date for the monthly auctions to the first Monday. From what I understand of ENTSOG's proposal 2, it's to effectively move the monthly the monthly ACA date down to the sort of the mid-month. And again, this may not be a firm aspect of the proposal, but there's a suggestion that you could perhaps keep the ACA auctions for monthly capacity and effectively push that date back to the middle of the month. So that might avoid the need to change the network code. But I think realistically, we think that sort of any supplementary auctions should be via the uniform price allocation mechanism. So in our view, running supplementary rounds of ACA auctions is probably a non-starter. But again, it's possibly something we could consider a bit more. So moving on to proposal 3. Okay, so proposal 3 is by far the closest to what EFET was proposing. So there are certainly aspects of this proposal which we support. So yearly capacity auctions on a continuous basis after the initial ACA auction is consistent with what we were proposing. But it doesn't allow for yearly capacity to be sold after the first quarterly ACA auction. So I think the subtle difference between ENTSOG's proposal 3 and our proposal is that the ability to sell yearly capacity closes at the point where the first quarterly ACA auction takes place. And similarly, the ability to sell quarterly product after the ACA auction closes at the point of the first monthly ACA auction. In the EFET proposal, we are suggesting more flexibility to carry on buying those products up until the point where they become usable. Individual quarterly UPA auctions after the ACA auction is consistent, so that again is consistent with what we're proposing. It's certainly moving in the right direction. And this proposal actually goes further than what we were suggesting in terms of monthly capacity, because monthly capacity via UPA auctions after the initial ACA auction is not just for the first month, it's for all the remaining months of that quarter. However, it does slightly limit new opportunities for the first quarter because you're proposing still keeping that auction date as the third Monday of the month. Replacing ACA auctions with UPA auctions for quarterly and monthly products. I can see the attraction of this. There may be benefits to it, but what it does do is it removes the element of capacity, price, and volume discovery, and the ability for shippers to sort of make a bid adjustment. So in a UPA auction, you're effectively having one round where you book blind, and the capacity clears at the lowest price. The advantages of the ascending clock is you do get some pre-warning as to what the level of requirement is. That may help you decide, assist your booking strategy in terms of deciding how much capacity you really want, how long you want to continue in the auction, whether you think the reserve price is going to clear at the point in time where it's still profitable against the spread. And you know, you mustn't forget that at the same time as all this happening, the spreads are moving. So the spread on one day may be different to the spread on another day. And I think having just one single UPA auction removes that price discovery. But having said that, if it helps in terms of providing a solution that is quick to implement and meets the requirements of all parties, then it's certainly something we wouldn't rule out. And I think the final thing just to say about this, well, I think it's arguable whether it better complies with the cascading rules compared to EFET's proposal. I mean, the cascading rules aren't clear and aren't specifically written down in detail. But I mean, in this situation, you still have a situation where November 22 capacity, for example, could be bought via the uniform price auction before it was otherwise offered in the ACA auction. So our proposal very much sticks with the ACA auction as being the principal auction for the individual products, whether it be yearly, monthly, or quarterly. This particular proposal goes slightly against that. Yes, it offers more flexibility, but you know, is it more consistent with the cascading principle? I'm not 100% convinced. Maybe the lawyers could give us an answer to that one. Okay, just moving on now then to the additional proposals that were included. Okay, I've mentioned this before, but UPA auctions replacing ACA auctions from the beginning. It removes this element of capacity, price discovery, and volume discovery, and sort of adjusting your bid accordingly based on what you know of the demand and the price of capacity compared to the moving spread, which some shippers and traders value highly. I don't think that's necessarily a universal comment. There's probably members of EFET that would quite happily remove the ACA auctions and replace them with UPA auctions for all products, but there's no one EFET view on this, but I think there are similarly some shippers that do like that discovery element of the ascending clock auctions. There were suggestions about UPA auctions step out from long drawn out ACA auctions. I mean, we have seen recently some monthly ascending clock auctions failing to clear, and maybe having a step out mechanism right at the very end, if they don't look as they're going to clear, might have some benefits. But this isn't the specific issue that we were addressing within the FUNC proposal. If the FUNC proposal is going to encompass more elements and you know, become more than just what we were proposing, then yes, we can consider this. But the concern we have with all of this is the more elements we add to it, the more options we consider, the more complicated it gets, the more time is necessary to implement, and the more difficulties may arise in terms of getting agreement on exactly what it is we want to implement. There was a suggestion about UPA auctions could be run as pay as bid rather than play as clear. That's something that we're not in favour of. I don't think that's appropriate, particularly for the quarterly and the yearly and the monthly products. And I think in that situation where you would see a situation, or you could well see a situation where the same capacity is allocated at different prices. So effectively, you could have one auction where capacity is allocated to shipper A at one price and shipper B at another price. And that applies even in a situation where capacity is not congested. So you could have capacity being sold at a premium to one shipper and at the reserve price to another, even when there isn't congestion, which we don't think is a sensible or ideal solution. And it could be argued that's discriminatory. I mean, again, depends on how you define discriminatory, but we see problems associated with that. There was also a suggestion about the first round of the within-day auctions for the full 24 hours. That's for the full day ahead. Currently close, well, they currently close at 2:30 in the morning on the preceding day. There was a suggestion that you could perhaps offer separate bidding rounds between 7 o'clock when the auction opens and 2 o'clock when the auction closes. So rather than have an open window over that period of time, you could have a number, you know, maybe one each hour, or maybe one or two within that window, whereby you have the potential of closing those auctions before 2:30 in the middle of the evening, in the middle of the night. That's something which I think has merit, something we would support, but I think we would want to probably see them. I know they're described in the network code at the moment as within-day auctions, even though they're not within-day, and even though they cover the full 24 hours of the following day, we would prefer to see those classified as day-ahead auctions. And the reason for that is that in many cases, TSOs have significantly higher within-day multipliers than they do day-ahead multipliers. So running them as within-day auctions, when in fact they're for full 24 hours of capacity for the following day, basically just means that you usually pay double the price for the capacity that was auctioned 4 or 5 hours earlier in the day-ahead auction. But it's certainly something that that there's benefit of, we can see merits in, but the multiplier factor is an important one there in terms of how you describe them or classify them. And then finally, the suggestion about additional run times. So I think in particular, balance of the month and weekend capacity were mentioned and certainly raised in the consultation. Again, we think this could have merit. Similarly, auctions spanning more than 2 gas years could have merit and certainly potentially open up more opportunities of booking capacity further ahead. However, they do add to the complexity of the auction calendar, and they potentially also undermine the cascading rules, depending on how you define cascading. So they're potentially things that have benefit, but they do detract somewhat from the core proposal that we're suggesting here, which we were hoping could be implemented fairly quickly without too much adaptation from the TSO, the booking side, or potentially even from the regulatory network code side. So, final comments, additional comments. Okay, so yeah, ENTSOG's proposal are interesting, and particularly proposal 3. We see a lot of merit in proposal 3, but you know, I think we would argue proposal 3, yes, it's interesting. Yes, it may be easier to implement, but is it materially better than the EFET proposal? I'm not entirely sure. It has some advantages, maybe some disadvantages as compared to what we were proposing, but it's not a game changer. It's not streets ahead of what we were proposing 2.5 years ago. And it is a bit disappointing. I think we have to add that we're nearly 2.5 years in now, and we're still discussing options. We don't yet have a clear view on whether the TSOs and the booking platforms are willing and able to implement such options, or by when. We raised the proposal essentially as a sort of proposal that could be potentially implemented on a voluntary or a trial basis, with a view of trying to facilitate a quick implementation. And that was relevant at the time, but it's even more relevant now, with the markets in the current state of turmoil, and with the record high prices we're seeing in the market and the record high volatility. Having this capability here and now would very much help to try and ensure that or remove any barriers to sort of free flowing of gas between market areas. So providing far more opportunities for shippers to buy capacity to actually move gas from low price market areas to high price market areas. At the moment, there's still effectively only one auction slot to buy monthly capacity, one auction slot to buy yearly capacity. And when you see the level of volatility that we're seeing in the market at the moment, and the prices, then this proposal becomes even more important. I mean, we've seen situations a few months ago where you had sort of 15 euros a megawatt hour spreads between the German market and the Dutch market. I mean, that's unprecedented, unheard of. And whilst those numbers perhaps have come down now, you're still seeing spreads way above the actual cost of transportation. Typically in market conditions, traders may be prepared to take a risk of putting spreads on financially, and then unwinding those spreads before they get there, or buying capacity at the point they can buy capacity to actually flow physical gas between the two markets. With the current level of reduced liquidity and the extreme volatility, that's just not happening at the moment. So having a proposal like this, whereby you're giving far more opportunities for shippers to actually buy capacity than they currently do, removes some of that risk and may help to actually increase flows and liquidity in the market. And we're talking situations here, but whereby we're now looking at sort of over the coming years, new LNG terminals being commissioned, and having to find ways of transporting LNG from where the terminal is to some of the more far removed markets that don't have access to that gas. Well, again, anything you can do to make the capacity booking process more flexible, I think in our view can only be a good thing. And similarly, this winter we're facing new storage obligations, 90% storage fill by 1st of November. A lot of that gas to fill those capacities is going to be coming from neighbouring markets. And if you can only buy the capacity to move that gas on sort of certain specific windows, then that becomes more of a risky prospect and more of a difficult prospect to manage. I'm not saying that this proposal of EFETs will suddenly transform things and make things so much better. I wish it would, but it will definitely help in terms of providing opportunities for shippers to maximise the use of capacity. And you only need to look at what's happening on the interconnectors between the UK and the continent to see that. I mean, capacity was offered, has been offered flexibly, and gas is flowing at the maximum possible rate between those two market areas. This type of proposal will help in terms of making those flows between market areas more efficient, not just between the already liquid markets, although even those what we've associated typically as liquid markets are becoming less and less liquid, but the less liquid markets that we see typically in the central and southeast parts of Europe. So that was effectively the reaction. Happy to take questions or to sort of participate in the discussion, but I think we are very much of the view now that this proposal, it was relevant at its time, and it should have been, or it could have been implemented relatively quickly, and perhaps we wouldn't have been in the same situation. Well, we would have been in the same situation now, but we would have had better tools to manage it. But it becomes even more important now, bearing in mind the market circumstances we're seeing, which sadly don't look as though they're going to get better anytime soon. So if we're sort of assuming that we're in this very high price environment, this very volatile market environment for the next year, 18 months, whatever it is, then the sooner we can implement more flexibility at IP of booking capacity at IPs, the better. Thank you,
Steve. Thank you also for highlighting how optimizing some of these capacity problems can contribute, maybe not resolve, but contribute to some of the urgencies that we see with filling the storages. There is one clarification question in the chat, Steve, so I will ask you to respond to that before we turn to Marco. So the question is, if the within day 24, so the 24 hours, but as a within day product, if it would be kept as such, so not as a day ahead product, would it be better to have this offer end earlier rather than at the same time as currently this 2:30 in the morning?
Well, I think I mean, basically, when you get to the point where after 7 o'clock in the evening, you're outside of the period of the traded market, and in some cases, some people don't have sort of 24/7 trading desks, so you're in a situation where effectively your ability to trade out of that position after that point becomes more restricted. I mean, I think there is definitely the case for having that opportunity to buy capacity before the start of the day. I mean, and after the day ahead auctions that close out, I can't remember exactly when that is now. So I think that opportunity exists to sort of to bid for capacity is important, but I think it would help if you knew that you had been successful or not in that auction before 2:30 in the morning. Knowing that at sort of 9 o'clock in the evening compared to 2:30 in the morning doesn't necessarily give you any greater trading options, because some of the commodity markets may close, but it does increase the opportunity of deciding what you're going to do about it, and potentially participating in the balancing market to address your potential imbalance as a consequence of not getting capacity. It's usually a question if you don't get the capacity that you have the problem.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you also for the reaction you gave on all the proposals. And then we will give the floor to Marko Janisijevic, who is representing Gas Infrastructure Europe. So Marko, please take the floor.
Thank you very much. Do you hear and see me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Gas Infrastructure Europe has been invited also by ACER and ENTSOG to give its position to the topic raised. And in this workshop, unfortunately, they do not have the possibility to attend. This is why I have been tasked or asked to present their position and their opinion with this regard. Hi, my name is Marko Janisijevic. I'm from Gas Connect Austria. Well, generally, let's get to the topic. I won't need much time. Generally, GIE is especially now with regards to the current situation with the gas flows, following the recent events, especially the geopolitical ones, tasked and well, they are thinking about the idea how to optimize the situation. What we are having now is, of course, as you all know, a major substitution of Russian gas flows by mainly LNG capacities. And well known is also that congestions have emerged. The point is that the needed LNG capacities, the commodity itself is there is plenty of it there. The major problem is to bring the capacity from the source to the markets. So the congestion is mainly given on the infrastructure for the transportation, less so on the regasification. And the thoughts by GIE and GLE have went into the direction that how the possibility is given to enhance the situation. The major point is there is a much more efficient use of the existing infrastructures needed to have an optimized reallocation of the transport capacities. Additional capacities in any regard may be also possible to be implemented, but the current given mechanics with the national development plans as well as the incremental process simply take too long with the network development plans and their capacity allocation taking place every 1 or 2 years, and the incremental capacity process, which is taking even longer. The idea or the GIE proposal or position is that that there should be a mechanic or any sort of ways to get the long-term supply contracts from Russian sources, and where mainly the flows have been reduced due to the geopolitical and gas flow situation. These capacities should get a possibility to be reallocated, especially, of course, the unused firm capacities. And the problem, and this should be placed on a national level between the TSOs and the NRAs to get unused firm capacities and it's the underlying technical conditions of the networks, and to place this reallocation, especially to the respective newly emerged points, which are mainly needed to bring these capacities from the new sources, such as LNG or from the south of Europe, to the respective markets. And the problem is that currently there is no regulatory guidance given, and this is why GIE is requesting or asking ACER for guidance to propose, and the GIE is proposing to introduce some sort of dynamic capacity allocation mechanisms, and these rules should oblige the TSOs to reallocate unused firm capacities from points which are mainly based on legacy contracts to specific points with the focus on the congested points, as they are already well known. And additionally, they are asking for the possibility for shippers who are able to supply commodities and are blocked for the time being by congested points to be able to and to be allowed to reshuffle these idle capacities to the other from the congested points to the newly merged points or vice versa if they are if they have the possibility to and simply have to need to use these congested points, because this is the main route. There should be some possibility to give them the possibility to give them the floor to have a walk through. And of course, such a dynamic capacity allocation is also connected with specific expenditures for TSOs as well as NRAs, and the GIE is also proposing that is also proposing that these additional expenditures should be regarded and recognized by the respective NRAs as non-manageable costs. And there shouldn't be any detrimental effect on the efficiency rating of the TSOs for using such additional measures. Of course, we are talking about a procedure and a proposal from GIE which is not in line with the offer of increased I'd say frequency of capacities, but this solution would increase the total amount of capacities. And so since we are talking about a topic and a proposal from GIE, which is not directly in line with the current workshop given here, GIE would propose that all these ideas, as they have been mentioned now, may be discussed in a specific separate workshop setting and not regarded as demand from GIE side.
Thank you, Marco. You raise another interesting issue regarding capacity, and then this fits a bit with the principle of maximizing capacity availability, which is well established in the regulation. So I would like to thank here all the participants or the panelists in the session so far. And I will pass the floor to Chila to moderate the open discussion.
So hello again. I will moderate and the open discussions, which will have two parts. On the one hand, I will run through the Slido results, and I would try to get some reactions from the presenters of the workshop, mainly the booking platforms and EFAT, whether they would have reactions to those Slido results. That would be the first part of the open discussions. And then I would proceed with the questions. We already have two, three questions that have been put in the chat, and I would move to those questions. And in the meantime, if you have questions, I would be happy also to pick them up as we go ahead with the discussions. I would think that we would have time perhaps for 10 questions or so, or 12. We will see how we will go with time. But for now, I would like to then see the Slido results, and I would move to Steve and also to the booking platform panel, whether they have some opinions about the results. The first question was which of the proposals do you prefer? And I would like that we comment practically the top results and what we think about the results. So the result is that EFAT proposal is preferred by 43%, and ENTSOG's third proposal is preferred by 33% of the respondents. I would like then perhaps to ask Steve to come in, what he thinks about the results, and then I would give then the floor to the booking platform representatives should they wish to comment on this.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me and see me? I had a problem with my camera.
I can hear you, but I don't see you. But
yes, hold on.
Speak. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
I would say.
So temperamental camera, I'm afraid. Okay, reaction. Well, we've got a very sensible audience, but I think, I mean, it's good that well, not all of the audience here, but a chunk of the audience do see a lot of benefit and merit in terms of what we're proposing. I mean, looking at ENTSOG's proposal 3, which, to be honest, I think is the only credible alternative. Option 2 and option 1 aren't really delivering on what it was we're seeking to try and achieve, but option 3 does deliver. looking at the difference, as I said before in my presentation, I don't think there's a material difference between the two. I don't think one is substantially better than the other. I think for me, the important thing is, well, you know, which of these proposals is going to be the easiest and the quickest to implement? And there has been a suggestion that proposal 3 respects the cascading principle more than the EFET proposal. Maybe it does. Option 3 does give quite a significant advantage of allowing shippers to book months or individual months within the quarter at the point in time of the first monthly auction for that quarter, which is, I think, beneficial. But, you know, I wouldn't say it's significantly better. So to me, it comes down to, you know, both of these proposals are good and have a lot of benefits. Which one can we implement the quickest, or how can we find a way of actually bringing this type of proposal, either the EFET proposal or the ENTSOG proposal, or a combination of the two, to the market quickly? Because, you know, we need it. Well, we need it now, and ideally we would very much benefit from it this winter, but we can't afford to wait another year, another 18 months, another 2 years for this to come into place if we are going to see the same degree of volatility and the same very high prices in the market that we've seen over the last 9 months. Now, hopefully we won't. Hopefully we'll return relatively quickly back to sort of more typical and normal market conditions that we saw prior to this. But, you know, I don't know. Who knows? I can't guess or predict what the market's going to do. But whilst we're in this situation, this proposal becomes more necessary. And so the EFET proposal, I think, addresses it. It's been carefully thought out. It's been written specifically to try not to undermine the existing CAM network code auction timetable and auction mechanisms that exist. It's just trying to offer extra opportunities. ENTSOG's proposal 3 does the same thing in a slightly different way. It's probably something, if it was easier to implement, we could get consensus on moving forward with. But I think both options are particularly necessary in the current situation.
Thank you, Steve. So with that, I'm turning to the booking platforms, and I'm very curious whether they would compare quickly the EFET proposal and the ENTSOG 3 proposal in terms of implementation needs.
Maybe I can start, Sheila,
yes,
if you want.
Paolo, please. I would like to.
I'm not surprised about this result, that the EFET proposal and the ENTSOG proposal are considered similar, and agree with Steve that on the paper they seems to be similar. My suggestion is that we should do an assessment which is the easiest one and the most efficient to be implemented. From a Prisma point of view, the implementation of one of these two solutions is similar. So the implementation time will not be so completely different if we go for the EFET proposal or the ENTSOG proposal. What is relevant for us for these two options is to discuss with the stakeholder how we should change the platform in order to make it as user-friendly as possible.
Okay, thank you. So practically you say they are very similar, and depending which one is more user-friendly, that one could get the gold medal. What's the thing?
And also which is the easiest to be implemented from
all
the
user,
stakeholders.
from all stakeholders,
but also for TSOs, because in the EFET proposal I see some additional effort for the TSOs because of the not cascading principle respected. But this is my assessment of this question should be asked to the TSOs. From a booking platform point of view, they are similar.
Thank you. Then I would like to turn to the other two booking platforms, and please take the floor at will and express your opinion. Stanislav?
Yeah. Let's say it's, as I mentioned, so the platforms are for the market and for market users. the results is we had registered more than 100. Now it's about 80, but the votes was just 22. So that's, I fully understood there's some willingness for the effort proposal, but I had some impressions that, okay, if it will be necessary, we have to implement as you like it, yes. But anyway, I founding this just the pure effort proposal in the original form was a little bit the challenge from the understanding and the ergonomic point of view to have the clear situations for the marketing of capacity and so on. So that's, as I understood, this ENTSOG proposal was as kind of the way of make this proposal a little bit more systematic. I understood that some points what Steve mentioned is over the expectation of effort, but anyway, it was the results of our questionnaires with talks with market participants. Okay, the effort is very well known, and I fully expect the representative organizations, but looks that some of market participants have different ideas. So that's I'm fully. It's nothing to discuss with the results. Vox Populi, Vox Dei, yes. But anyway, as also Paolo mentions, okay, it could be some challenges, could be complicated. So we will see what will be decided here.
Thank you, Stanislav. And then I would turn to Roland. I don't know whether you can come in. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just can totally agree with Paolo and Stanislav. It's feasible. Of course, we can do it. We do not see very much difference between proposal 3 and IFED proposal in terms of development. Yeah, of course, we can do it. Let's see what will be the final outcome. When I have a question to Steve, to Steve, I just see the frequency of the uniform price auctions. Why IFED does think that it is necessary to have 3 auctions every day? Would it be enough to have less uniform price auctions and not in this frequency?
Yeah, okay, just taking that on. I mean, the reason that we were proposing having the auctions, 3 auctions a day, so yearly, quarterly, monthly, is because obviously the spreads change on a daily basis. So, having the opportunity to buy quarterly capacity on Monday may not be attractive, but by Wednesday that could all of a sudden have turned positive. So we are basically suggesting an extra 3 uniform price allocation auctions each day. So, we don't think it's a huge change from what people have become used to. I think people could, in our view, fairly easily adapt to having or to knowing that there is this opportunity to buy at certain times each day after the ascending clock auction continues. The mechanisms are well known and established. I admit there's some issues around having more auctions. So I suppose you're increasing the sort of stress on the system. I think from a TSO back office perspective or back end process perspective, there's perhaps a few more challenges with our proposal compared to ENTSOG's proposal 3, but we didn't see it as being particularly onerous. So I think there was a suggestion in the chat that after the ascending clock auction, why don't you just go to first come, first served? Well, I think there's many traders that would quite happily jump at that opportunity, but that's not what we were trying to implement. I mean, essentially, I think the auctioning mechanism is there and it's important for a reason, and you need to be able to allocate capacity on a standard basis so that all market participants have a fair chance of accessing it. All you're doing is making that available more additional opportunities to do that after the ascending clock auction is closed. And having a regular slot that says, okay, at 10 o'clock it's the early auction, that may or may not result in capacity allocation. At 12 o'clock you have the quarterly auction. At 2 o'clock you have the monthly auction. So everybody knows that that's a further opportunity to buy capacity once the ascending clock auction has closed.
And what about if you have the normal ascending clock auction, for example, for the quarterly auctions? What about then with the yearly auction? Should we suspend?
Yeah, I mean,
during the yearly auctions,
the plan is certainly not to have overlaps of auctions. I mean, if a quarterly auction or ascending clock auction ran on, then you wouldn't be having uniform price allocations that day. We'd suggested that there were distinct periods before and after the ascending clock period where you would suspend any uniform price allocation auctions. And clearly you can't have a situation where you're having two consecutive auctions for
the same
quarterly within the same product. That would be a non-starter. So you have to effectively sort of have a cut-off point where you can't auction capacity because another auction is still auctioning some capacity that falls within that period.
But to be honest, this is very similar to first come first serve. But
it's similar, but it's not first come first serve.
We call it auction.
The reason you need it is because you need to open up the opportunities of buying capacity more frequently, which first comes first serve does very well and very effectively, but it doesn't offer a level playing field, whereas an auction does. So you could argue it's first come first served by auction.
Yes.
Okay. I would suggest, thank you very much. I would suggest that you leave open your cameras and then we go a little bit quicker for the remainder of the questions to also stay a bit on time with the workshop. So I'm asking for the next slide, and I would like that you comment practically the first two. So if So if additional UPA auctions are introduced, how often should they be held? And then the first two options are once per business day and once a week. And I'm asking you what you think about the results. Steve, if you want to start, that would be a pleasure. And then we can do the booking platform round.
Okay, well, once per business day is consistent with what we were suggesting. And again, as I mentioned before, the reason we're suggesting this is that the spreads change each day. Well, the spreads change each hour at the moment, but the spreads typically will change each day. I'm sure I could look back and sort of find a situation where the spread at the beginning of the week was sort of 3 or 4 euros per megawatt hour different from the spread at the end of the week. I haven't got a particular example to hand, but we're seeing that level of volatility in the market at the moment, which was unheard of a year or so ago. So that's why we're suggesting once a day. I think doing anything more than that is a non-starter. If it makes it easier to implement and we could do something quickly, then you could consider a situation where instead of having it once a day, you have, I don't know, 3 a week or something like that. If once a day is going to be too much of a strain on the booking platforms or the TSO back office processes, then we are open to consideration of alternatives. But once per business day seems logical, seems straightforward. We're using existing algorithms and existing processes, so we didn't see that as overly challenging.
Thank you very much. Paolo, would you like to come in? Maybe we can just keep the order.
Yep, absolutely. Also for these answers, I'm not surprised because, as Steve mentioned, they are consistent with the EFED model, and the participant consider the EFED model as the preferred solution. It's feasible. It's feasible. We just have to understand how we can do it in the most efficient way, especially for, as I mentioned before, for small shipper. Maybe what Stephen mentioned as a proposal to start with a week process, and after that, see if there is the need to go daily. This could be a step forward, so not to start immediately with the most advanced and complicated solution, but go step by step and have an interim solution, knowing which is the landing point.
Thank you, Paolo. Stanislav, would you like to come in?
Yeah, but it's as I mentioned, the results as they are as they are. Yes. So, but anyway, as I mentioned also to your presentations, these issues, we are getting to some challenges, okay, for performance, but also for clarity of our web page and the ergonomic, yes. And this also a little bit, I'm partly also as a TSO, and the daily offer for yearly auctions looks a little bit like the first come, first serve. Anyway, okay, this may be on the last day when some capacity, yearly or monthly capacity will be available. Maybe then we will have a chance to recognize the market value of capacity. So that's the once per day, the yearly or monthly auctions. I think it's a little bit the challenge, but I think it's okay. As the service provider, as booking platform is challenge, it's a reachable challenge, and the ergonomic could be create the challenge for our users, but other issues are, as let's say, the stipulated or something like this. Because in this case, I can just mention about the ergonomy, yes? Because as a good programmers should prepare the algorithm and the tools according to as they wish, yes. So I'm not a fan that when the programmer say it's your solution is not good, yes. So that's we just waiting for the final decisions, and it's the scale of the complicity, yes, as all Paolo mentioned, is that's everything is possible, but it's just cost of the effort, the money, and so on.
Thank you, Stanislav. Roland, would you like to add something?
Yeah, thank you. I think I mentioned everything about this issue before. Yeah, it's feasible. We can manage with this. Yes, of course, we have to bear in mind the costs and of booking platforms, the extra costs for hardware, programming, and so on. Not mention reporting. Yes, if this will be the decision, of course, we will do it.
But do you find reasonable what Paolo was mentioning, to start with the weekly option and move on to daily?
Yeah, of course, it would help us, of course. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So, if there can be only one change made to the allocation rules, what would you like to be that? And we have an overwhelming response on more auctions. Maybe I would focus on that. Maybe we don't need to make huge reactions here, but I would like just to give you the opportunity to do a quick round and evaluate this answer.
Okay, I'll be very quick. Again, no surprise, that's what the proposal is, the FUNC proposal is designed to do. You know, the other aspects that we've discussed, the shorter bidding rounds, etc., the moving dates back or forward, all interesting, but the key element is to try to offer more opportunities for shippers to book capacity and for TSOs to sell capacity.
Thank you. Paolo?
I'm not surprised about the result. Actually, also I was voting for more auctions. I would have been expecting a bit more on the third point, auction date closer to the start of the product. I was expecting the market participant or participant to today's conference were voting this higher.
Thank you. Stanislav?
So if we have the more auctions for the same product, so as was mentioned, there's also the questions about the, let's say, the basic price, which is the something additional, could be at something additional, just let's say the additional terms for the auction of the same product. But it's based, it depends on the, let's say, the regulatory approach. If the basic price for the next auction is the same as previous one, or always we start from the tariff base. If any auction premium appears in the previous auctions, so it could be additional effort if we would like have some kind of the continuity of the market values of capacity. And also the questions when we should stop the additional auctions for the capacity if it's nearly all sold, or if it's any my favorite 1 kilowatt-hour of firm capacity for such products, this auction should be repeated until end of the runtime.
Thank you. Roland, what is your reflection?
No more here. It's not surprising from the previous answers. It's the same result.
Thank you. Can we move to the next one? And this is the last one. So how do increased LNG imports affect flexibility needs for transmission capacity allocation? And I would like that we focus practically on the first two replies. And then one of it is no impact on the allocation. And the second one is it requires products with a runtime between monthly and daily. Could you come in and reflect on these two answers? Steve, I would start with you.
Okay, yeah, a little bit surprised by that. No impact on capacity allocation. I mean, I think I would take the view that if you're able to buy monthly capacity more flexibly, that would increase the opportunities of moving LNG that you're bringing into to a particular country out of that country. Sort of on a sort of reasonably consistent basis with the sort of the time frame of the cargo unloading or the cargo regasification. I mean, you know, in an ideal world, you would be able to buy capacity specifically tailored to the days where your slot was booked for and when your regasification program came out. But then you're into sort of, pretty much booking capacity on sort of as long or a short a strip as you possibly want. So it makes it very difficult to sort of have harmonized products in that respect. Maybe a balance of the month product might be appropriate in that respect, but in my view, particularly the ability to buy monthly more flexibly would increase those opportunities. But I'm not an expert in LNG operations or LNG trading, so I could be proved wrong on that.
Paolo, would you like to reflect?
Yeah, I mean, when I read this question, I thought that we were referring to LNG that is bought for moving to different countries. That's the reason why we are thinking about cross-border capacity. And starting with this assumption, I think the market will need something that is between the monthly and the daily. But it really depends also on, as Steve mentioned, about the characteristic of the facility and of a network. So from my point of view, there's no clear answer on this one. I'm surprised about not impact on the capacity allocation. Maybe the one that answered this, they choose this answer is because they thought the LNG was bought to fill the lending country and not cross-border activity needed.
Thank you. I think that's like both points are very good. And of course, we have to take into account that we got limited inputs. But I'm just kind of carrying on at this point, Stanislav, and then Roland, if you have any views on this one.
The question is regarding, let's say, from more the capacity marketing, not the booking platforms. But to be honest, I'm completely not surprised with these results, because when we looking for the current monthly products auctions, they are nearly in the last time. When we are looking for the period of the ordering of LNG, the time of traveling the vessels and also the regasification processes. So if you need for this period for whole month, I think this one in practice 1 week in advance or 10 days in advance, I think it's completely enough. And if they are necessary for shorter period to go out from the LNG terminal with this, your LNG, what your natural gas transported by LNG vessels, this daily allocation is okay. So to be honest, I'm not surprised, but this results is a little bit contradictory of the rest of these discussions, because it means that in such situations which we now have with the significant increasing of the LNG usage of the source of gas in Europe, so it looks that the current capacity allocation mechanism is efficient and it's enough. And maybe it's not necessary to make such huge changes as was proposed and as was results from the previous questionnaire. So I hope that my position is not too much provocative, but this answer shows me that current mechanism is efficient enough.
Thank you. Roland, would you like to also reflect on this?
It's not a typical booking platform.
Indeed.
Question. Maybe traders or TSOs should reflect to this question. To be honest, here we do not really work with LNG. So at the moment, I cannot reflect anymore on this.
Thank you very much. With this, I'm closing the Slido session, and I would move on to the open questions. And since we got a few of those from the first part of the session before the break, I would like to ask first Davide Rubini to introduce his question, but also give a little bit of a background for that. Davide, can I get you?
Yes. Is it working?
It's working. Many thanks.
I appreciate that it's a bit of a marginal comment to this conversation, but I thought it was worth mentioning anyway. We have observed that some interconnection points that at times not all the potentially sellable interruptible capacity in the form of virtual reverse flow is actually coming to the market. And in the conversation that we have had with TSOs in this respect, it came clear that that part of the problem lies in the fact that the CAM network code does not explicitly say how much capacity the TSO have to make available in this form. There is a general indication that within day capacity, interruptible within day capacity should be offered, but it doesn't say how much. And some TSO, for instance, have interpreted it as interpreted the provision as saying that only the capacity that is the amount of interruptible capacity that has to be made available is only the non-nominated firm capacity that has been booked. And when you look at how virtual reverse flow function, there is no real reason for that to be the case. Ultimately, as long as a TSO observes forward flows in a certain amount, it could, in principle, offer the corresponding amount of interruptible capacity in the other direction. Now, again, I think the mega topic, the meta trend of the meta topic of this conversation is that we are in a situation where in many cases capacity is indeed available or could be sold to the market, but is not and remains unallocated. So as much as with the IFED proposal, we ask for more auctions, more flexibility in setting options for allocating the capacity that remains as unsold in the standard sessions as they exist today. We believe it could be useful also to clarify the provision in the CAN network code that deal with the availability of interruptible capacity in the form of virtual reverse flow, so that also this is maximized and shipper can send gas where it's most reasonable as per price signals.
Many thanks. So I'm considering this as a remark, and it's very clear as you explained that you see that there would be some room for improvement when it comes to interruptible offered in reverse. Ingrid, I'm wondering whether you would like to come in. I also see that next to your question, you also made some comments. So maybe we could wrap that up very quickly and orally, I would say. Ingrid?
I don't need to comment any further. I think it was just an idea or a comment.
All right. This was the discussion about the first come first serve, whether that would make sense, and I think that was also covered a little bit in the discussions with between Steve and Roland, and there is some some additional comments from Ingrid then in the chat. If that is the case, then I would like to move to the next question. And the next one is from Ivo from Istardel, and Ivo is working for Craig, the Belgium regulator. Ivo, would you like to present your question? Okay, I don't know whether we have technical difficulties here. If not,
could I ask Ivo to just raise his hand, please?
Ivo, please raise your hand.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
We have a clarification from Ivo in the chat as
Hello,
well.
good morning.
Hello.
Thank you. Hear me? Okay. Hello, good morning. Thanks everyone for the very interesting workshop. Just to clarify, when we started, the basic idea of being flexible and having a workshop, a shop open 24/7, I already we started the idea, and Paolo can confirm, we debated about this within Prisma in 2018 already. So I put it on the agenda in the network called CAN workstream. And so I'm still a big fan of it. So, but in 2018, we were watching a total different world. Low gas prices, there was enough gas on the market. There was no congestion. You need eagle eyes to find a congested IP in the report from ACER. It was a completely different world. We were debating about Quo Vadis and even talking about reserve price going to zero, because we thought and we were convinced that as much as possible, lowering the price of capacity on IPs would make that the spreads between the markets would be as low as possible. So that was the basic idea. Now what I'm seeing now from since September last year, we're seeing changing flows east-west to west-east. our network is not developed, developed to take these flows, and we see a lot of congestion, especially in Belgium. As Steve already mentioned, there is congestion between Germany and the Netherlands, but there's also congestion in Belgium between the Netherlands and Belgium, between UK, and I noticed in UK the price was 60 and the price in Belgium was 120 and price in Germany is 135. So there is quite some enormous spreads. We see spreads which I only was used to see in electricity world. So things have been changing quite dramatically. And I think this congestion will stay there until the next 2, 3, 4 years, until we have these floating terminals in Germany, floating terminals in the Netherlands, and maybe some investments in pipelines, if still allowed by the European Commission, in Belgium or in other countries where necessary. So we see this congestion and we see these spreads between markets. And my basic question is now, who takes the spread? Do we allow to take the traders take the spreads, or do we push our TSOs to take the spreads? And why I'm in favor of pushing for our TSOs to take the spreads, what I'm doing for the moment now, that's not a secret, is that because if the money goes to the TSO, it goes back to the consumer because he has a regulated revenue. If it goes to the traders, well, they will build a party with that. And that's what they're doing now for the moment, because it's not a secret. This world, this upside down world is quite an enormous playground for traders, for producers taking money, US LNG, Norwegian or Norwegian, France, Qatar, everyone is taking lots of money on the back of the European consumer. So if it's possible to take back some of these profits by pushing our TSOs to take as much of the spread as possible with capacity, and then we need to look again at the philosophy which we're talking about today. Maybe some people think there's not a link between what I'm asking and what's been presented today, but I think it is. We need to look at network code CAM with and new glasses, as I did in 2018. I was already saying network code CAM was very well, like Steve said in the beginning of the presentation, was very, very good to go from the old world into the new world, but it's not that's no longer feasible. It's not longer a good regulation for what's happening in 2018. And it still most certainly is not, in my opinion, not a good regulated framework anymore to work in the world which we're living now. So that's where my question is coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. I would give the floor to Steve, and if anyone wants to comment from the booking platform side, I would take it, but then somehow raise your hand so that I see that if you want to react. Steve.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Ivo. Good to see you again. Who takes the spread? Well, at the end of the day, the auction decides what the premium is, sort of thing. And if you have an €8 per megawatt spread between the two markets, then you would imagine that the premium gets relatively close to the spread between the two. It may not be exactly the spread. It'll probably be less, because otherwise, why would you? If you can't make anything out of it, why would you buy capacity? But you know, the TSOs will enjoy some fairly high premiums in this particular situation. You only need to look at what's happening on the internet to know that. Yes. So, you know, it comes back to, you know, first come, first served. It's one of the reasons why you can't really have first come, first served. You have to sort of have an auction, and on some days there may not be any interest in that capacity. 2 days later, there may be huge interest in that capacity, and the auction premium gets at or pretty close to the spread, which is, dare I say, a windfall gain for the TSO. You know, traders are being accused of windfall gains and windfall spreads. I would exercise an element of caution over that, because a lot of the speculative trading has disappeared simply because of the situation we're in at the moment. The low liquidity and the high volatility is partly because a lot of the speculative element of trading has gone out of the market simply because they can't afford to post their margin premiums or you know, post credit to put trades in place. So, you know, I think the reason you have the auction is to determine a fair allocation of that spread.
Thank you. I would then give the possibility for the booking platforms to react if they wanted.
Yes, I wanted, but I think that Salvatore raised hand, so I'm not sure it shall we he, and he is waiting for his vote. Yes, maybe also in this area, but up to you. I'm a little bit fully support Ivo. That's I think that's our current CAM regulations crossed the fire test during the last month, because we are in the part of the Europe when we had the auctions premiums many years ago, and maybe in some part of Europe it was some just a theory. In practice, it was just tariffs. But this the huge discussions which was on the basic of the CAM regulation, that if any congestion appears, then will be the the tariff give us the basic return, but also is the issues of about the market value of the capacity. Maybe if there are some premiums appearing, that maybe not the shortest way will be the cheapest one. So it also is that the market signals, the well-known market tools and market signals, which was used only many times for the balancing, maybe now is for the capacity management also should be used. So that's, and it create more efficient usage of the system. So maybe not the shortest way will be the cheapest one, and so on. So that's and you mentioned about this incomes. This up to NRAs is how will be used the incomes from the premiums. Will be for the system development or for something like this. The NC-TAR a little bit changed the picture. Before the NC-TAR, the all incomes should be used or must be used to the network development. The NC-TAR a little bit make this regulation softened. Now it's up to NRA, this one. So we have a lot of regulations. We have not the pure CAM. So, but anyway, I think that's the CAM welcome in the capacity management for the market-based tools and the incentives, not only in the balancing, but also in the capacity marketing management. And the platform is just tool for this, because we are just give the information how much is the premium, how much is capacity. And this current situations allows to see the real market value of the capacity on this IP, not only the last few kilowatt hours per hour for the last round of the auctions, or last round of the auctions, not the bindings. So that's also, it's up to NRAs if do you like to have this market value of the whole capacity on this IP on the last part during the last auctions on the last days.
Thank you. I will give a quick opportunity to Paolo to react, and I will move on to Salvatore's questions. I think there are two.
I will try to be as fast as possible. As standards like as booking platform, we will implement what will be the new regulation. As a person, as a European consumer, what I would like to have in the future is a CAM network code that is flexible, because we are now living a situation that was unforeseeable, but I will not design the new CAM network code to live in a situation like today. Probably we need solution for the next 2 or 3 years, but in the long run, I hope we will live in different market conditions. So my really wish for the regulators is to define something that is flexible and we can adjust easily to the new development of the market. What we could also think about is that maybe in the future we can also combine different capacity product, being transportation with storage, being LNG with transportation, something that will make even the booking of capacity product even more efficient.
Many thanks. Then I think I should be moving to Salvatore. Salvatore, would you like to take the floor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Could you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Thanks, ENTSOG and ACER for this opportunity, of course, to discuss this topic with all the stakeholders involved in the process. I have only two questions. I will be very fast. The first question is for EFET for the market. My question is if could be problems for small shippers to manage actions every day. This is only a question on this topic. And my second question is that the proposal 2 is the modification of ENTSOG auction calendar. And this solution would be the only one that could be applied without the modification of CAM network code, compared, of course, to the main ENTSOG proposals. My question is for EFET and for the market too, if is in light of this clarification, could option 2 be an immediate answer that could be of interest for the market for EFET? I would like to know the point of view of Steve Ross. Thank you. Salvatore from Regulatory Department of SNAM. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Steve.
Thank you,
Steve.
Salvatore. I'll try and quickly answer those two questions. So, might it be a problem for small shippers? Yes, I guess it might be. It's introducing 3 additional auctions each day, which don't currently exist. So that is something that needs to be considered. I mean, it's the small shippers, if they're bidding for capacity in the ascending clock auction, will already have to get used to the idea of submitting bids during the course of the day. So they will be, processing and making bids every 2 hours under the existing ascending clock mechanism for monthly capacity. So introducing that concept of new auctions to consider is not completely alien, and maybe some of the tools that the bidding platforms have to automate that might help in that respect. But yes, certainly, small shippers should be a consideration. Shippers come in all shapes and sizes and have all different requirements, which is why we specifically don't want to stray too far away from the mechanisms and the calendar that's in place at the moment. But we think that adding just these extra 3 auctions a day on days where there's no other ascending clock activity is not insurmountable. On the second one, proposal 2 is the only one that doesn't require a network code change. That's probably true, although I haven't looked at it in detail. There is an issue, I think, around Article 13.2, which may be an issue with the proposal as it stands. But the idea of pushing the yearly and the quarterly capacity auction dates forward to closer to the start of the products, it will be attractive to some shippers, but probably not all shippers. So essentially what our proposal is trying to do is to keep the dates that everybody is familiar with and has become accustomed to, but get over that issue about, still having opportunities to buy capacity closer to the point where it becomes usable through supplementary uniform price allocation auctions. So yeah, it's I think on its own, if all we can do is option 2, then I think we may as well just leave things as they are in our view. But that's I guess a view of the EFET membership, but not necessarily a universal view across the industry.
Thank you. Thank you for making it this clear. Thank you, Steve. I think at this point, I would like to move on with the conclusions. And I would like to thank you for your active participation. In particular, I would like to thank you, Steve, for being so active and helping us with the questions, but also kind of really showing the true reflections of the traders and what they were wishing for. I would like also to thank for the booking platforms, because they came with well-designed presentations to explain to us what is complex in their view and what could be implementable more easy as opposed to something that is more difficult. As I see the discussions, what I see that we are still discussing, but we are getting much closer to what we would like to get. And the choices are not easy. We would need to establish a good balance between frequency, between complexity, frequency of auction, complexity of auction, and what the relevant costs would be along it. What's important and where we got a lot more information today is a bit about the urgency of the actions. And I would like to encourage you that the moment we launch the post-workshop survey, which I was mentioning earlier, please focus a lot on the benefits and explain to us what is the urgency to change the network code. At the same time, I have to take note of some other considerations, which were about improving the CAM network code on some other points, which would allow also for greater flexibility, better use of the network, and more optimization. I would like that you also reflect on those issues and of their importance. And finally, I would like to ask whether the Commission would like to come in on the network code amendments aspect. I don't know whether they would be ready, but I see yes. And then I would like to give the floor to Markus Bacchus from the European Commission, DG Energy.
Yes, thank you, Chilla. I hope you can hear me and see me. Can you hear me?
Yes, to both. Yes, we can.
Okay.
I was nodding, sorry.
Perfect.
We can hear you and see you very well.
Yes, indeed, the urgency has been underlined a lot. Why is that important? Because in general, our priority is to get the December package adopted. And once this is adopted, we would analyze required changes to all the network codes. However, if there's really some urgent issue that is threatening the functioning of the market and would really undermine the capability to react to actual or potential supply cuts or disruptions, specifically in view of the next winter and the current circumstances, then an amendment would be possible within some months' time. But we indeed will require sufficient evidence for this urgency. In this regard, I followed the discussion, and we will, of course, analyze, and we look also forward to the post workshop progressing. What I found interesting is the result on the LNG imports and effects on capacity allocation. And the comments on having a network code that is in a way flexible enough. I think we have some flexibility in it as regards large and small price steps that I understand have been already adapted by the TSOs to cope with the current market situation. And as said, based on the reactions on urgency, we would also need to assess and also look forward to ACER for their input and NRA's input on what potential other elements could be flexibilized. But as said, the focus on rather short-term changes will be on big points that are really threatening, and an overall amendment of network codes, not only the CAN network code, but also the others, would follow then the adoption of the December package. So I hope that clarified a bit on our stance on the thing. And as said, happy to follow up and continue the discussion on that.
Thank you, Markus. It's very clear, and it's a very important clarification that you made, that in fact urgent changes could be connected to issues if the market is threatened. And with that, I'm going to the final thank yous before closing the workshop. We would also like to thank you, ENTSOG, for the preparation, and in particular Claude and Madeleine for managing the very first part of the workshop. And then, of course, I would like to thank Edouard Lebret for presenting for ACER, Nico for the presenting and discussing with the booking platforms. And we had also a lot of back office help from ENTSOG colleagues, and I don't know all of them, unfortunately, but Madeleine, feel free to come in. And I would also like to thank you on our side. Givile was coordinating and making all the coordination and administrative efforts to bring this workshop together with ENTSOG. Madeleine, maybe final thank yous for on yours.
Thank you, Chiba. And yes, thank you to all the colleagues for the help with the workshop today. We had a few colleagues on the ENTSOG side as well, our IT expert Bogdan. And we hope that you have enjoyed this workshop very much. It's been a pleasure to hosting it and to organizing it for you.
Thank you. And the final remark from Claude, my co-chair for today.
Nothing to add, and yeah, we'll work on the next steps. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a very good afternoon. And we are very curious to have your responses then in the survey that we would be launching this week. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Goodbye.
Bye.